Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast. My name is Steve Smith, and I'm your host, and this is another fantastic episode. In fact, it's a special episode of Colin Campbell Chemicals and Dint Golf Solutions walking the fairways. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's fantastic to have a great partner in Colin Campbell Chemicals, and Nadeem joins me again. G'day, Nadeem. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, not bad, Steve. Yourself?
Very good, thank you, mate. Now, this is a special episode we've got coming up, mate, so great to have you on to quickly talk about a couple of things.
So, mate, I'm in my office having a chat to you, but you're out on a fairway at a bloody awesome course called Royal Sydney with Adam, aren't you?
Mate, it's it's a pretty impressive part of the world, and something very, very special that everyone's just about to listen to. So I can't say too much. Everyone's just going to have to listen to the rest of this, because this is something quite unique that no one will have ever heard before to this level of detail. So I'm really excited about it, mate. Really excited. And you'll have to let me know what you think after you've listened to it as well.
Yeah, 100% will do. Say hi to Adam for me as well.
Oh, I will, mate. Now, we've heard about Chino, the new product that you guys have in the marketplace for PTM control, but it's time to talk about another one.
Yeah, so not a new product, but we've brought an old product back. They're both broadleaf herbicides, methyl tricombi and sports ground. They've been a staple of our portfolio since pretty much the late 70s, early 80s. However, we had a bit of supply issue with Mecaprop, one of the active ingredients in both products, for the past 4 or 5 years. So last year we were able to get supply again and bring it to the market. It was a little bit later last year, but this year, no problem with supply and bringing some old faithful trusted herbicides back to the Australian turf industry.
Fantastic, mate. Great to know coming from an Australian company, which is one of the reasons that I'm a big fan of Colin Campbell Chemicals in the turf space. So really exciting that you've got that available for people. The timing's right, and it's ready for this time of the year to be utilised. So, great to hear, mate. Well done.
One other thing I do want to mention, might be not that much early, but the Australian Sports Surf Managers Conference this year is in Sydney, in Homebush.
Yes.
So, we're going to be there, along with a whole heap of other guys and a whole heap of great speakers. A couple of guys I do know, Jim Kearns and Chase Straw from the States. So we're going to be there. So, hopefully that a few people listening to this podcast will pass by the show, register for it, and come and say hello.
Absolutely, mate. That's the idea. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're going to the conference this year, make sure you check out the Colin Campbell Chemicals stand at the trade show. Fantastic stuff, mate. That's coming up in June, not far away, and I'm sure people are thinking about ready to head to Sydney this year.
Yeah, definitely will. And Steve, enjoy your walk around Royal, please.
Thank you. I will. Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to check out Colin Campbell Chemicals and their website. And if you want to get in touch with Nadeem, you can do so on the contact page, but it's at campbellchemicals.com.au. Walking the Fairways segment of the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast is proudly brought to you by our partner in Dint Golf Solutions. Dint Golf Solutions is an Australian family-owned company that's now in its 4th generation of family ownership and reaching nearly 100 years old. They have become the leading supplier of golf course maintenance equipment, coring tines, course hardware and signage to Australian golf courses. As a company, they also continue to grow beyond our local shores to supply golf courses in other countries around the world, such as New Zealand, Singapore, Qatar, the USA and Canada, to name just a few. Along with their own Australian manufacturing, which is one of the things Dint have been well known for, they scour the world sourcing some of the best greenkeeping and golf course products to make them available to you. A couple of examples are the KBV Efforts tines from Germany. Based out of Hamburg, KBV Efforts are famous for making the Connie Spoon tapered tines and the Long Life Tiny Tines. There's also the very popular iPro hole cutter invented by British Manufacturing Solutions. And as this is a special episode, check out my Instagram and Facebook page, ladies and gentlemen, where I will be showing you just what Dint Golf Solutions have worked with the Royal Sydney Golf Club to produce for their unique tee markers out there on course. It is really quite fantastic indeed. Check out the Dint website at dint.com.au and get in touch with Dint Golf Solutions. And if you like, you can also just ask for Adam Dinty. He'll be able to help you out. There's no two ways about that. And their website is pretty cool too. You can purchase direct from the website, which is super cool for things like tines if you just want to put your order in whatever time of the day suits you best. And don't forget to check out Dint Golf Solutions on both Instagram and Facebook. You can search for Dint Golf Solutions and follow them on either of those platforms to make sure you stay up to date with what they're up to. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's a very unique insight that we're about to get from deep within the Royal Sydney Golf Club here in Sydney. Now, I have a couple of things I just want to quickly let you know before we get stuck into this awesome episode, and that is you need to know that there's a little bit of background noise because we're out there going around, walking the fairways, driving around the golf course, and it's a working golf course. So there's lots of machinery going around, doing work. It was a day during the week. It was actually just a week ago that I was there on course. So lots of equipment going on in the background, and you'll hear that from time to time. So please excuse that. One of the things that I've also used is a little bit of new equipment that I'm just getting used to. It was the first time out there for me doing it with this particular equipment with some of the mics. So there's a little bit of a tiny echo there in one of the microphones, which was on mine, which I just need to try and work that out a little bit better for next time. Not a big deal. Some of you probably won't even notice, but those of you who are podcast buffs, you probably will be able to pick it up a little bit, but I do apologize for that one. Now, you're going to hear the absolute detail from deep within the mind of Adam Marchant, one of the best superintendents in Australia. And you're going to hear about what he thinks about and what goes through his mind for a project of this scale. Now, I want you to also take note, ladies and gentlemen, listen to the professionalism of how Adam talks about the club, his team, how they all function and operate, everyone who's been involved in this project and has worked together, and how they've communicated. You'll hear a lot of that stuff and how they've worked so well as an extra large team pulling this whole project together. It's very, very impressive to listen to. This episode of Walking the Fairways is actually the definition of walking the fairways, and I was never sure whether one day I'd actually get an opportunity to go out there and do something like this, and I certainly didn't think that it would be at a place like Royal Sydney after this incredible Hanse redesign of the golf course, but that's just what's happened here. So Adam has allowed me to join him, and we go deep. And as you know, ladies and gentlemen, that's something that I love to do, is going deep. So, there's a lot coming in this one. No two ways about it. You're going to hear the continued excitement in my voice as we go through the new golf course, which I just keep getting bamboozled by as we go around, and I've still been thinking about it a week later on. Adam's going to give you a real insight into the architecture and the greenkeeping and how those two key parts of a golf course intertwine so much, and they need to work together to bring the best out in any golf course, and that's what Adam's going to detail to you, ladies and gentlemen. Without further ado, this is episode number 117. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a really unique thing to be able to do. I'm joining Superintendent of Royal Sydney Golf Club, Adam Marchant. G'day, Adam. How are you, mate?
Hi, Steve. I'm really well, thank you.
And thank you for the time, mate. This is quite remarkable to see on site and in this space just what has been achieved here by a wonderful crew. So we're standing here. Is this the back tee that used to be here next to the clubhouse?
Yeah, so this is the championship tee. So we call it the northern lawn as well. So this serves as a function space.
Oh wow!
But it's the championship tee. So this hasn't been touched in the recent works. This was heavily utilised.
Okay.
During the project for functions, we actually screened this off so you couldn't see what was going on out there.
Right.
But yeah, this is where they played from on the weekend.
So this is their opening tee shots were from here.
Yep. So the president, Lucy Regan, hit the first shot on the new Bay course on Saturday morning in front of about 150 people up here, and she striped it. Beautiful shot, middle of the fairway. So pressure was on, but she nailed that.
That's an incredible view to an amazing transformation where the trees have been pared back and opened up, right? A lot of this width here has been brought back out, and then the open sand has been brought in. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So it's a heathland style golf course. So obviously Hanse, as the architect that everyone knows, has done an amazing job, and working alongside Harley Cruz on the landscape component. The plan was to restore a lot of the native heathland that existed here before Royal Sydney grabbed the land. And the early photographs of the site was, seaside linksy heathland material. So it's great to think that we're 130 years on, and we're restoring it back to what it was from a plant palette point of view.
Yep.
And the beautiful thing is that Gil wanted that style of golf course, so that the fact that we can bring that plant community back and it complement Gil's design is amazing.
And he works so well in recreating some of that landscape as well, right?
100%.
And some of the work that he's done. I think, is it Ohupi overseas that he did as well, which I've seen some images of. It looks just amazing. I mean, this as a launching tee shot, and I don't know what it is about it, but since all of this sand has been brought back out in the foreground before the fairway starts to some of this native vegetation that's been reintroduced, it kind of, you can see that little rise of the hole that goes up from the hollow that you're hitting across. And I don't think I could ever remember from memory feeling that expanse and that carry, if you like, and then the movement of the ground up towards the first green. It's, you know, a little zigzag around, like a chicane almost through the bunkers, which is, I think that was kind of always there a little bit, but it just feels so much bigger.
Yeah, the old first hole was, you know, heavily bunkered on the left, like this one is. But I think what the native does, it just makes you focus on the golfing corridor, you know, and the old golf course had so much grass.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of maintained rough, and you just struggle to kind of focus on that golf corridor. And this native landscape now, it pops, and when we get up the top end of the golf course where it's more mature, you're down the bottom end here where this stuff's relatively new. The first lot of plantings we put in, which is coming up to a year old now, it's phenomenal. It looks amazing. This stuff is quite underdone.
So this is the younger, later stuff that was finished off.
And we still have a lot of plant material to go in the ground. So we've put in this year, well, over the last 14 months as part of the project, we put in 2,187 trees. So they're all done. Trees are done. We've put in 250,000 plants, and there's another 250,000 plants to go. So this year we're going to attempt to put in 125,000. We've got our first plant delivery coming today, actually, for the next tranche of plants. And then next year we'll do another 125,000. So there is.
Wow.
We tried to get plant material down here around 18 and 1, you know, visually from a clubhouse perspective.
Yep.
There's some big expansive areas out there that have nothing.
Yep.
And that's the only bit that's probably letting us down at the moment. And now that we're open and in play, and the native areas that have been done look so good, I'm keen to try and fast track that as best I can, because it's the only bit that takes the edge off. But
yeah, for sure.
Understanding we've just opened a brand new golf course, it's not, you know, so there's still a bit of work to do.
Just looks astonishing. I haven't even left the clubhouse yet.
We'll keep going.
Absolutely. Wowee.
So yeah, I think the width is the big one. Obviously we removed 595 trees, but important to note that we put back in 2,187 trees, right? So
right, okay.
Of that, there was 948 large trees that we had grown at a nursery that went in between 100 litre pot size and 500 litre pot size. So there was 948 of those that will grow to be big trees, big species of trees. And then there was 1,239 smaller trees, which went in a 200 mil pot size. So they went in smaller, and they're not going to be as large of a tree once they're mature.
Okay.
But that offset the 595 that we took out.
Sure.
So, and I guess the beauty now is that the design's been done and the trees have been put in locations that complement the design and not constrict it, which is...
Yeah. And you were kind of dealing with the way that they were just growing over time from when they were just planted in the ground, right? There's no real plan as such that I'm aware of. Is that right?
Yeah, well, essentially how this club evolved. So the club was formed in the late 1800s. The site was acquired early 1900s.
Yep.
The final design, or the final routing that we just removed as part of this project, was formed in 1922 when the last bit of land was acquired.
Okay. Yep.
And then around the 30s and 40s there was a tree planting committee that planted all the corridors of the design that had evolved.
Ah, okay, right.
So there was no one design that then got locked in. And then from the tree planting planting out the corridors, essentially any architect or any work that had been done between 1922 and up to the most recent one, everyone tried to stick within those corridors that were defined by that tree planting committee. So it was difficult.
Yep.
Gil made it pretty clear that if we want to really create something special here, that some of those trees need to come out. it was never a conversation about not putting trees back in. It was just about taking them out and allowing the golf course to be built properly, and then putting the trees back into locations that actually complement the design.
Yeah. And it aren't going to hinder it over time, because this is such a special reworking of the golf course that you kind of only want to do this once.
Correct.
Don't you? This is a really well thought out exercise. Plus, you went through a hell of a lot of work in getting it approved and everything with the local council and through, as we know, the Land and Environment Corps. This is quite an incredible transformation to the vegetation and back to what it was long before it was a golf course, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's really what you've done here.
It's an amazing story. And to your point, I guess that was the key, was let's get the design right. The design's right, it essentially should last forever. If you look at the good Mackenzie and Donald Ross designs and things like that, Gil's made a living out of restoring some of those back to their original design, because that original design was so good.
Yep.
So I guess we never had that.
Yeah.
I'd like to think what we've done now is we have that, and therefore this place architecturally shouldn't be touched ever again.
Wow, look at this. Look at the first green. Like a short par 4 to start off with, and it's not a common thing, but if it's done so well, you think of Victoria Golf Club, we often do. This is now, look at that feature in the mound.
Amazing.
In the green. That is just wow. This is exciting.
So opening day on Saturday, we put a front pin here. So it's one of those greens now that it's interesting. It's a hard pin if you're in the wrong spot, but if you're in the right spot, it's arguably the easiest pin on the golf course is this front pin. If you're behind the hump, you can't hit over the hump to that pin. You actually have to hit around it and let it funnel back down. So
that is the coolest feature.
Very cool. And this is one of, as I mentioned, so that hump and this front wasn't on the plan.
Okay,
so this green was kind of long and thin, and this
just
is one where
as it was being done, Gil was just feeling it.
Yeah, he just said he referenced one of the greens at St Andrews, and it's not exactly like that, but it plays similar, where it entices you off the tee if you have a forward pin, bit of a backboard there to work with, but you've obviously got to take the feature on, which is the bunkers.
Yep.
So just trying to get people to think off the tee, and he felt that when he was building this, he wanted to add it in, so he essentially called us over and asked whether we had an issue with it. At the time, I had some concerns around some shade, and his first green was heavily shaded.
Yes, yeah.
So we pushed it a little bit that direction to combat the shade issues we had here.
And they've been thinned out, those pine trees. Like, you've taken a lot of what's in front of that, I gather, but it's, in doing so, it's not just reduced the number, it's sort of opened up in through them as well for a bit of air movement. And
it's interesting, those pine trees actually are quite a nice feature of this now. I don't know whether they're the right species for what we're trying to achieve, but it kind of works. But the issue on this green were the big fig trees that sat here, but
right, okay.
We actually,
because that's the northern side of the green, right? So as you get the winter, that becomes a real issue.
But we actually had 3 big fig trees there that literally fell down. One of them got uprooted in a recent storm.
Oh, really?
And therefore the 2 beside it had to come out.
Wow. So okay. Far out.
That's made a massive difference on that green. But we did shift it. Like I said, Gil was very conscious of our agronomical issues, and made sure that he consulted with me in every location of green to make sure we could make it work.
And we go back to you're only here to do it once, right? You're not here to do it again.
These are some of the bubblers we've made out of using the paper bark that we removed.
Oh wow!
In-ground bins, just to make sure we don't
That's
have
a cool feature.
A lot of cluttered furniture and things like that.
I like that. It's really unique.
These logs, I feel like I should address these logs because it's something that most people mention, but these logs are actually habitat logs. So we, as part of the biodiversity management plan, we had to put back 2,059 lineal metres of habitat logs. So these are logs that we cut up as part of the tree felling process. So we logged those from the paper barks and the trees that were removed. Yep. And we've dropped them back into the landscape, and that's part of our biodiversity management plan.
Wow.
So we've tried to place them in areas where they won't cause too many issues from a golf ball perspective, but that's a difficult process with the tight property, and we seem to cover a lot of ground here. Golfers find some funny little spots, so it's a difficult one to try and find spots where they're not going to catch a golf ball.
Yeah, sure.
But obviously high traffic areas that we are aware of, we try to remove them out of and place them around the place. The bunkers are quite a unique design, so we obviously are quite a sandy site, as you would know.
Yep.
Drainage is, we are fortunate that the site drains pretty well. However, there are some spots that don't, so we've addressed a lot of that drainage. There's a lot of infrastructure that's gone in the ground as part of this project.
Because you're reasonably low as a site, right?
Yeah, so there's water table, is quite high in spots, depending on how much rainfall we've had, obviously. But the bunkers I'm really, really impressed with how these bunkers have come up. So what we've done with the bunker construction is we've gone with the Better Billy bunker system.
Okay.
So it's a 5 to 7 mil drainage aggregate of gravel in those bunkers, shaped.
Yep.
The Better Billy polymer sprayed on, and then we created a bench that we put the Better Billy on as well. So the bunker's shaped, the bench is formed, and then we've revetted these bunkers, as you can see.
Yeah.
So that's natural
So
revet.
that's real turf. Yep.
That's real sod, harvested from site.
Wow. Okay.
So we did all that in-house. So it was a bit of a complex process with the bunkers, but between our team, between the Atlas golf team, and obviously Gil and his team, and then Global Turf, who did the application of the Better Billy, we had a really good system in place there, where we all worked together to get that final outcome. But essentially, Gil and his guys, Josh, Reese, and,
Mind if I get it?
and
Just
Roy,
having a walk.
Yeah, for sure. They would shell the bunker out. They would essentially shape the bunker to how they wanted it, and then they would paint us a revetted line, and we would come in by hand. Our team, the Royal Sydney team, would come in and hand excavate out that bench on the line that they created, and that would form the bottom of the revet line, right? That's what that line would be that they would paint.
Okay.
So they're putting a rough shape in there, and they're trying to foresee where they want that edge.
Yep.
So they would literally paint that line. So we'd come in and bench that out, and then the Atlas golf team would come in and clean the bunker out, shell it out, and add the drainage. So all bunkers have a drainage pipe in them. Atlas would do that. Our team would then come in and add the gravel. So we'd spread the drainage gravel out 50 millimetres across the whole thing, and we would mirror the shape of the floor that was, and the faces that was given to us by Gil, Josh and the team. And then Global Turf would come in and spray the polymer, the Better Billy polymer. It would set, and then that would be handed over to us to start the revetting process. So what we actually did, so the theory behind the Better Billy was we obviously had some areas on the old course that didn't drain as well as others. We needed to address that, and I knew that our site sand was no good for bunkers, and that's been tried and tested for ever. And it's always
it just doesn't work.
It's always been a talking point, right? So we knew we were going to import a bunker sand, so we needed to create a barrier between site sand and the imported.
Otherwise, it's just going to filter through, and
exactly.
cause the mess that you started with.
So that was one of the reasons, and the other reason was I really wanted to protect the integrity of the shape and the design. So my theory was that if we put that Better Billy in and we lock that in, essentially the shape of this bunker can't change, right?
Yep.
So then, to combat the same thing happening with the edge, we actually put Dura bunker, which is the synthetic revetted material that you can use to revet bunker edges. We've put 3 strips of that around the entire perimeter, and we've anchored that through onto the Better Billy shelf, right? So it's there. You don't see that because when you add the 100 millimetres of sand over the face, it covers.
So if we were to scratch that edge away, you'll see that artificial stuff at the base just holding.
So we've put that in, and then we've stacked our natural sod on top of that.
Right.
And what that does is, this natural revetted edge will obviously need to be replaced here and there, and some will crumble away, and that's also a feature that we might embrace if it falls away a little bit. However, if ever we need to go back and redo anything at any point, we've got if we manage the depth of the sand the bunker should never change shape.
Yep.
Because of the better billy bunker locked in the base
Set
and the
in
face.
place. Yep.
And then the edge of the bunker, the accurate edge that was given to us as per their design is now being locked in by this synthetic Durabunker. So whenever any revetting work needs to be done, I've no concern that it will be put back in a way that wasn't how it was originally designed. So essentially that is, and there's a chipper that's
right on cue. So you've kind of got it set so that it's not going to be an evolving bunker shape around the golf course, but you're going to have that element of natural decay and then really natural breaking down over time. But then if it goes too far, you can always bring it back. You don't need... So it's a really like a base point that you can rebuild, in a sense, the bunker edge or rejuvenate without having to do a lot of wholesale work and bring material and so on.
And we've just seen the shapes. I mean, the old golf course, it's a really good example, and it's just such a different bunker construction design. But the old golf course had native sand that essentially had no benchmark of where the base was.
Yeah, okay.
So as it blew out and worn away, you topped up a bit, or if you didn't, they became really deep and hard to get in and out of, but you didn't actually know where the base was. And just through maintaining the edge, whether it's through whippersnipping or reciprocating, you just receded that
always
edge.
Taking it a little bit out.
And you just don't realise, you turn around.
So work is sort of changing the shape faster, or maintenance is changing it faster than natural decay.
For sure.
And then it's this cycle, right? But that's part and parcel of looking after a golf course. It's a hard...
So we're now working on how we maintain this revetted edge.
Okay.
So we don't take any ride-on mower up to the edge of the bunker.
Okay.
So this is all, any revetted edge that has short mow around it is cut with a walk-behind mower.
Right, okay.
So you can see the walk-behind mowers come through here.
Oh, there's the width. Yeah,
and
got
now the ride-ons will come and ride up to that.
Yeah, okay, cool.
We're actually flame burning the faces and torching the faces
of
the revet. We're using herbicide, we're using flame guns to burn them off, and then we're using hand shears for anything that creeps out over the top, just so we don't recede that.
I got a question for you. I saw this really cool. Now, I've never seen this before. How this is a link in a... I've never seen that before. Is that... it's going to sound really funny. I did a 3-tiered bunker in Katoomba, right, which was linked together like this because I wanted it to feel like sand moving through a dune, and you got one at the other end.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Have you ever seen that before?
No, I haven't.
I'll have to show you, send you my photos of Katoomba, because that's the first thing I noticed, was there's a divide of gravity in the bunker without being grass. It's just like a natural movement of sand in dunes. And then I'm going to take a couple of photos of that, because that is wild.
And this one's interesting. And
I love it.
I think it's really unique, and I also love it because you think about the amount of people that talk about a bunker and how the face needs to be a certain angle of degree and the floor needs to be completely flat.
Yep. Agreed.
You're essentially going to have uphill and downhill stances here, and
it's a really cool thing, right?
You'll have to play to that. And there's a perfect example on the third hole, which is a par 3. So it will get a lot of traffic, and the same thing exists.
That is so cool. I just think that's unusual, but I love that effect.
How we're maintaining that with the view that there is a designated floor, but that interconnection is.
And the ball will, it'll generally roll through, but
from time to time you'll have maybe an
and that's
uphill or a
okay.
downhill.
That's golf. It's a unique challenge.
It's a hazard.
Yeah, it's not this, right?
Aim on the short stuff, and you'll be.
And were there more trees? I don't remember this section so much, but I got a feeling there were more trees through here.
This was always open here, and this was an interconnection between old 2 and 16, and now it's 2 and 9.
Right. Far out.
But there was a big section of trees beyond this copse here.
Okay.
And you'll see when we get up to the third tee and the second green, you see fully back to the clubhouse now, which is...
Now the Melaleucas that you've got around, and I know there was a big hook of them in 18, they are kind of what works here because it's a wet site. Is that kind of the right way of saying it, or is that something that...
Well, I think it's why they were planted. I guess some of these trees, we obviously couldn't... We had to be conscious that we couldn't remove every tree, and we never wanted to.
That wasn't the plan anyway.
Gil wanted trees, and it's a tight property, so it helps split corridors and things like that. But the main population were the paperbarks. It was a tricky one, but Gil even made the comment when he walked around here 2 weeks ago. He said, "I'm actually glad. He thinks the trees that we have left have worked in the great locations, and we've tried to expand on those copses now where we've added new trees."
Yep.
so we still keep parts of the property open, but we expand on the current groups of trees that are there to ensure that we do increase the canopy over time.
You know what? And I don't know whether, because I've only been here once before, right? What hole? This is the second still?
The second, yeah, sorry.
So we can see now, because there's no trees through here, like the expanse of what we can see, I get a really unique feeling now of what the site is relative to the surrounding environment. Like it's a real drainage location in this area, right? It's the lowest point before it goes out through the...
This is an amphitheatre. We've got Dover Heights up here. We've got Bellevue Hill there, all looking in. And you can see, you can see that we are extremely low.
It's quite remarkable because I drove around, is it O'Sullivan's on the south side here, and I didn't realise how far above the road is situated to the golf course, and you get to that high point, and even along Newcastle here.
Newcastle Street, you can see how much it's been cut out here, and that's part of, this takes water.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's like a local drainage point, which I never really appreciated before.
Yeah.
And seeing all these native grasses and open sand. So this has been stripped back to reveal sand. This is the native sand. Is that right?
That's the site sand, yeah.
Okay, so that's what's here.
Yeah, and it's amazing how, there were concerns initially about that being loose and soft and things like that, but it's amazing once you get a bit of plant material in there that, it tightens up, and we've done a lot of hydroseeding, and I think members were pleasantly surprised on the weekend, members that played out of it, and there were quite a few that played out of these areas. They were pleasantly surprised at how firm some of those areas were.
Yeah, okay.
This is a perfect example of how these guys, when they build this, have stacked some of these holes, and you see, from a depth perception perspective, especially when you're further back on the fairway, you can see how the bunkers on the third green actually look like they're connected to the second green.
They do.
But then when you get up there, that's that third green's another 150 metres away.
Yeah,
from those
right.
bunkers. But visually, and obviously it's a member golf course, so our members will get used to that. But it's an interesting. And that's obviously done on purpose.
I love this approach. This is par 5, the second, isn't it?
It's actually a par 4. It's designed as a par 4.
Okay.
We've gone with 5 sets of tees on this new golf course.
Right.
And the championship tee, so the back tees, is actually going to play as a 4.
Right.
Here,
okay.
But everything else will be a 5.
Okay. So for members play, it's a par 5.
Yeah. And it's about the 25 metres short of the old second hole, which was a par 5.
That is such a cool use of bunkering, but then you've got this open until the grasses start to grow over the years, but it feels so much bigger, and it's not a very large space for 18 holes.
That's 42.
Right?
The site's 42 hectares, so it's tight.
So it's tight in modern standards,
Tight.
but I'm looking at this going, there's so much room here now. It's quite remarkable.
And I think that's the thing that members will be pleasantly surprised with. We obviously had opening round on the weekend, so we had 288 members out here playing over the weekend. And there's been a lot of talk around the introduction of heathland, and we reduced grass by 15 hectares, right? So
15 hectares of grass was taken out.
It was reduced, yeah. So
wow.
But that was all rough.
So that's this lot of expanses.
So
and
the difference now is, whilst there is this native heathland element, there's a lot more short grass. So the width in fairways is, some fairways have doubled in width.
And you can push it because there's no shade issues or water issues of drops coming off leaves to create bare areas and
the thing you don't get a sense for on this green is the pocket, the wing at the back.
Oh no way! It hooks right around the bunker.
Yeah. So
that is. Look at this. I can't wait till that starts to just fill out a little bit more naturally. That is just a beautiful view.
Yeah, and like I said, when we get up to the top end where the natives, more mature, you get a real sense of what this place will look like in a year's time.
Wow.
And the native, it's still got a lot of work to be done.
Oh,
and it'll just get better. This place will get better and better.
It can't get any younger. This is as young as it gets, right? How have you found the pure distinction?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Were you
amazing.
excited at that thought of being able to rebuild greens for what you wanted to do on a place as long as established as Royal Sydney?
100%. Yeah, it's been an amazing journey, and working with a lot of good consultants in relation to choosing profiles, and the work we've done. John Nayland's been amazing and he's been a part of this journey with me for a long time, and we've selected a growing medium that we think is the best for what we were after.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that.
It's the Yulonga,
sand.
We've done a lot of work on it. We've tweaked it. It's different to what some other people have used.
Yep.
And whether that's particle size distribution changes from what others used, or we've gone high, we've gone a deeper profile, so we've gone 350 millimetres instead of 300.
Righto. Okay.
So we've tweaked it over the years, and I guess what we saw on the weekend for the first round of golf was mind blowing. And I mean,
in what way can you tell me that?
Just the firmness and the green speed that we could get from this, and obviously the pure distinction plays a massive part in that. But
But it's that combination, right? And I think that's an understated thing that people, and I say people loosely, and for me it's clubs, it's boards, and golfers, more often than not, better golfers, that don't really appreciate that combination and what can be brought out from a maintenance agronomy perspective, right? Those two combinations are so incredibly tied together that you can do something. It's like 1 + 1 can equal 15. And I know it sounds wild, but really that's
agreed.
what you've got on your plate now that you can work with.
But you feel this now, so we just had 5 mils of rain like this morning.
Yep.
I mean, if you
Did you have that much rain this morning already?
But if you
in those few showers?
You tap that.
It's
and
awesome.
So, yeah, it's pretty incredible. And I think the thing I enjoy, like I said, I guess we had the benefit of time, right? And we built a trial green and we watched it for 5 or 6 years. We played around with it. We did a lot of testing on that, so we could play around a lot. And we did that with every element. We did the bunker sand. I mean, we trialled 15 bunker sands, right?
That many?
And when the project started, we still hadn't decided on a bunker sand.
Wow.
And as it turns out...
There's a lot of homework.
As it turns out, we actually imported this sand from Melbourne, right? So we'll talk about that in a moment. But if I stay on the greens, I guess the thing I love the most is, like you talked about the combination, pure distinction, it's an amazing surface. Anyone who knows it knows the downside would be the thatch accumulation.
Yep.
But that's a maintenance and a management technique that we...
Because you can overdo that pretty quickly without really thinking too hard.
So we seeded at the lowest rate possible. So we seeded greens.
Okay.
Seeded at the lowest rate possible with the view that we didn't want to be grassy.
Yep.
A lot of sand's gone down. You know, the minute we could get a dust or a top dress on once that seed popped and we got the first cut on, we were sanding regularly. And that's going to be the process we need to manage.
Yeah, okay.
We're doing our first lot of thatch testing today. So we're pulling some plugs out of greens and we're gonna try and measure and manage this thatch and work out where we sit in relation to inputs and what we can do to combat that.
Yep.
But the other benefit we had, so the first 6 greens that we built and seeded, we actually waited till we had 6, and that was partly because Gil was on site and the construction moved really, really quick, and we wanted to maximise Gil's time to get as many greens built as possible. So he did 6 greens. Well, he actually did 8 greens in his first 11 weeks here. He'd built 8 greens. And then we had to come behind and, get all our processes in because he just hands over the cavity, essentially.
Yep.
But we actually watched those 6 greens that we seeded first. They were built with the profile in for a long time before we seeded it. So we actually got to watch the profile with no grass on for a long time in the shape of the green.
Settle out and do...
And that was really interesting because then you get a good understanding of what the profile does, and I guess more importantly, what the grass does when you put it on the profile.
Yeah, okay, because you can't see it once it's got grass on it, right?
That's right. So I think that people sometimes get a little bit confused with potentially blaming the profile when it's the grass that's actually causing the issue. So, and I guess that was my point. It was really interesting to watch that profile on its own without grass.
Yep.
In the shape of the green.
Yeah, okay.
And seeing what water does,
really cool.
both from an infiltration point of view or moving.
That's really unique. That's a unique insight. You're quite right that having an open surface to see how it reacts to rain, heavy rain, small rain, irrigation.
We got
baked out in the sun.
We got pumped with rain. I mean, we started this project. Construction started early, January 2024, and we had January, February, March. It was amazing weather. April and May we got April, May, June we got
leading into
rain.
winter.
So the first 6 greens we seeded, we had the week before we seeded greens, we had about 200 mils of rain that completely washed greens mix out, and we had to redo and reshape the greens. The first 6 greens we seeded, we had 5 days. We seeded the first greens on the 22nd of April 2024, and we had 5 days of the most beautiful weather, perfect germination across those 6 greens, and then day 6 we had 100 mils of rain. So it actually washed.
Oh, what?
And the 13th green, which I'll show you, has a big false front.
Wow.
And the whole thing just washed down the front.
No way.
So we were pushing sand up. We were trying to reseed some areas. We ended up doing a lot of plugging once we established.
Yeah, okay.
And you wouldn't know now, but that was a really tough time. And
I
think I questioned the seeding rate at that time because we'd seeded at a light rate.
Yeah,
and we washed
okay.
a lot.
Yep.
I was questioning seeding full stop.
In general, yeah, because of the weather,
it
right?
just kept raining. But as it turns out, we persevered, and my team did a lot of work in getting these greens to where they need to be from a plugging perspective, and managing that washout. We ended up borrowing covers. We had some covers that we purchased for the 2011 Davis Cup. The tennis.
Oh, okay, yep.
I went and saw Adam Lewis down at the SCG, and we borrowed covers from those guys. So we ended up, any rain event on a seeded green, any rain event that was coming, we covered at the last possible moment. We covered greens,
Right. Yep.
and then would pull the covers off
To
as soon as
protect
possible.
from the potential wash.
Yeah, but also try not to smother out new grass.
Yeah.
And so it was tricky. But
That's challenging.
That process worked pretty well, and we saved some further washout there.
One of the things I've just noticed already just here, and I love this. It's just no back to this. It just blends in.
Yeah, that's the design.
Is these figs, some of these bigger figs, because you couldn't see the trees in their unique size, shape, distinction, as it were. Now you've sort of taken away a lot of that other stuff and the over density that's not needed. The trees tend to stand out now.
Yeah, and then they're nice, right? It actually works.
Oh, they look magic.
Like I said, it would be a weird sight if you had none. It's tight. It definitely needs
For sure.
that. And like I said, the intention was never to completely denude the side of trees.
Yep.
It was just making sure that we could create something forever, and that the trees weren't going to impact that initial design. So I think where we've kept them has worked really well, and Gil has been able to work and tie back into them.
Yep.
And then you can see new trees here that are
through here.
That some of these are protection mechanisms for guarding the second green off the 9th tee and things like that. I think it's worked out really well.
Wow, I love it. I still go for the fact that you can see so much more of the golf course.
Back and you see
the view to the clubhouse.
These are just vistas that never existed.
It stands so proud. Everything. And you can sort of kind of see, we're looking back and you go glance and go, oh, well, that's my finish. I've still got to get to 18. And that's what I'm looking at with the expanse of the sand on the inside of the corner, the new bunkering through there.
Yeah, and that bunker is amazing. That's I think strategically 18 is one of the strongest holes, and we'll drive down it. And you'll see how different it plays from the back of the tee to the front, and you can see your mind's racing on that tee because there's 4 or 5 ways you can play that golf hole.
Wow.
And it's interesting that there's a false front on the left edge of that green.
Yeah.
So if you try and steer away from the bunker, you're going right down the fairway. Well, that false front comes into play.
Yep.
But if you either lay up in line with the bunker and just be short of it, or take it on, you've got a better approach shot in. And that's an example of exactly what Gil's done here. Every golf hole is thought out. There's a strategy behind it. There's an easy way to play every hole.
Yeah.
But if you want to shoot,
if you want to attack
score,
that's where the challenge comes in.
That's it.
And that's what's built in.
And you see it. I mean, you'll see as we drive around the amount of short grass, the connection of short grass from green to tee. You can see our older membership enjoying putting a lot.
Yeah.
There's no bunkers.
Yep.
The old golf course had a lot of bunkers in front of greens that didn't allow that.
Yep.
There's a big open area to pretty much every green. There's a couple of examples where there's not, but you'll see how members can really enjoy, knocking the ball around here. The fairways are wide, and if they're not hitting the ball a long way, they're not going to get into too much trouble.
And go back to what you said before, it's got that 2 lives that you want to lead at the same time. It's a members club, right? So they've got to come out here and enjoy themselves, but challenge themselves where they choose to. And that's probably another thing. It's their choice if how hard they want to go and how hard the course will, I suppose, defend itself. And then you've got the idea that hopefully, not too distant future, you'll be holding a tournament of significant value and significant level in Australia, that this is going to challenge those players as well in a way that we've never seen this course do in modern times. I mean, there is nothing like this in Sydney. And it's been here underneath, lying dormant underneath this site for so many years now. And I've said this for a long time, certainly on the podcast before, but anecdotally to friends and colleagues, it's like, this is a game changer for Sydney. And to be able to bring this out in this site, we've had it here. It's taken the skill set of someone like Gil and the club going through everything that they went through to get to here, having yourself involved from a superintendent's perspective, leading the course team, Harley from a vegetation perspective, and the club's, I suppose, courage to really go for something like this.
It was a bold move, but I think to your point, it needed it. I think the club has, over the years, they've attempted to do some things, and whether it's been lack of funds or not wanting to commit to the amount of money that it needed, or having a big membership and it not wanting to ruffle feathers and
all the things that can go with that. Yeah, 100%.
And there were plenty of times throughout this that it would have been easy to tap out. It was a challenge, and it was. I mean, I was a part of that whole thing. We've been on this topic for a long time, and Gil was selected, and we announced that Gil's our architect in July 2016.
So you think about forever ago, doesn't it?
What happened from then to now. It's 9 years, essentially, that we've been working on it. So there were plenty of opportunities there where it would have been easy just to
for the club
withdraw that application.
Throw the towel in and say, no, too hard.
But it's been great. And look, credit to Wallara Council. We worked hard with them, and they had a job to do as well, and they were being conservative, and we fully understand that. We know that the outcome is fantastic, and we know that this golf course will add community benefit from a flora and fauna perspective for many, many years to come. So it was a challenge. Tree removal was contentious, but I think now that it's done and people see what we've achieved and how much plant material has gone back in and how many trees have gone back in, I think people appreciate that we have done the right thing with a long-term vision in mind. And obviously there's short-term pain that goes with that, and there was a big chunk of trees that came out, but you can appreciate how good this site will be. And it's a huge green space in a really significant part of Sydney. It's been fantastic.
And what the club, and led by yourself, will now foster and harbour in the rejuvenation of the natural plants selection that from this area. These are endemic plants to the eastern suburbs of Sydney, hence the eastern suburbs Banksia scrub. And I'm going to ask a question, and maybe I'm being a little bit forthcoming in this, and I've asked this to people like Richard Forsyth in Melbourne, at Royal Melbourne. Is there any potential for the club to somehow introduce some of the local community groups to see and appreciate this in here? Because I know it's a private course and it's a private club, right? But I think, and I'm big on that engagement with the local community. It's been fought so hard by the club to be able to do this. You mentioned that the Wallara Council, you worked well with them together, albeit it's such a sensitive project that they've got to be commended in what they've helped you guys come through with. Is there some possibility of that in the future, potentially, to be able to, I suppose, have some of those local community groups come in and experience what's here and be involved with this and see it?
Absolutely, it's exactly where the club wants to go. So, I mean,
that's great.
Already we've got the nurseries we're working with. We're working with 4 or 5 nurseries to just help produce this plant material, purely based on numbers alone. Quite significant, but they're already coming back in and collecting seed.
Oh wow!
Right, so that they can try and grow for us. But we would love to have work with community groups and Wallara Council in collecting seed here to you know, ensure that this material gets dispersed around the eastern suburbs of Sydney.
I love this bank.
Yeah, this shortgrass connection, these freeform tees, everything tying in. You look at, we're taking short mow in between those bunkers, so we've got a 6mm height of cut there. We take a walk behind and mow that.
Okay, yep, to do all that.
And you can see how good that looks.
Just looks magical.
And you just look like, this is another spot where you kind of look around and there's plenty to look at, and you just see how it all ties in and fits in. And
I can't stop looking everywhere. My eyes are as big as dinner plates. This is, there's views here, like you said before, that were never here.
That's right, yeah.
I love the bunkering. I love the blowouts at the back, away from...
Yeah, and you can see here where we've burnt and how it blackens that edge.
Oh, okay, yeah, gotcha.
It's a pretty cool feature, and then the grass starts to grow back and we'll burn that off again. And when you get that right, it creates almost like a shadow line around these bunkers, and it looks beautiful. They just pop at you, you know, with that contrast of the green tight mow, and then, you know, you get that black face. It looks great.
Solid pin, mate.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Oh, I love it.
Slippery downhill there as well.
This
is some of the furniture stuff we've made in-house. So T markers and these benches, all from the paper barks that we...
Now, I have heard this from one of my partners on walking the fairways. I've got to take a photo for Dint. Adam's been talking about this one. It's that looks beautiful.
So these are all made in-house. We've got a talented team, and we've got a gentleman called Rob who's been with us over 10 years, and he does all odds and ends for us, and he's been instrumental in this. He's worked with me pretty closely to work on designs, and then our head mechanic, Jerome, has assisted in that process.
So these are from the timber that was cut down from some of the Melaleucas were taken from the work?
Yep, and then we've just created these bronze plaques that Adam Dint has done for us, and then we've painted them and, you know, then sanded off the top to pop the badge and the emblem out.
Yeah, right.
And then added
and put the colour in for...
and then we've epoxied the whole thing.
That looks fantastic.
These are the benches, same concept.
Oh, so the seats have been made out of that. The benches have been made out of the trees as well.
That's right. Bubblers.
That is so unique. That's an interesting... I've got to ask, where did those ideas come from? Because that's a really cool detail.
Yeah, well, I guess we worked with Gil quite a lot on...
That is a really cool detail. I think that's amazing.
I guess Gil's brief was nothing out of a catalogue, right? Everything's slightly different, and less is more, so we don't want to overdo the furniture and take away from the visual beauty out here. So we all, you know, our senior team and the whole team in general sort of thrashed ideas around, and, you know, we just played around with different styles. A few of our guys had been to the US and seen some things, and yeah, it was great. It was nice kind of collaborating with the team and everyone buying into giving ideas, and we just workshop some stuff and then play around in the shed with making it and see how it looked, and then we'd get Gil's endorsement of it and go from there.
And as you mentioned, you're getting that buy-in from the team. It gives them something else, another level of attachment to the uniqueness that is now this wonderful golf course and facility that was always fantastic, but this is another level. Wow. Some of the grasses that we've got here, what types of...
Yeah, so the majority of that's wallaby grass.
Okay.
One of Harley's favourites.
I just love that look.
But there's about 110 different plant species that we will be putting in.
Right.
There's probably 60 or 70 different species that have gone in so far.
Okay.
And again, there's another 250,000 plants to go in, so we'll keep introducing these species. That was a difficult process. We took all that on in-house, so we planted all those plants in-house.
Did you really?
We planted all the trees in-house. We laid all the turf ourselves. So solid turf the whole site.
Wow. And
obviously greens were seeded. But
and this is all Santa Ana cooch?
Santa Ana, yeah. And then we planted all the trees. We're obviously heavily involved in the bunker process, as I mentioned.
Wait.
So we were pretty stretched, but our team, you know, someone asked me the other day what, you know, on reflection, what my thoughts would be and what I'd be most proud of. And I'm genuine when I say this. The thing that probably makes me most proud out of this entire project is how our team got stuck in and got it done.
Yeah.
And we've got a big team and we're fortunate, but it's not a large team when you're doing this amount of work.
To this scale, yeah.
We kept open the 9-hole centenary course, so that was open for member play. We've got tennis bowls and croquet, down at our northern areas. We've got all the clubhouse gardens that still needed to be maintained and presented. And we put on a few extra staff, which was handy, but we took on a lot, and the guys did an amazing job. And like I said, this project isn't anywhere near as successful without the buy-in from that team. And the hours they worked, the endless days, the weather that we dealt with, there was minimal fuss, and everyone knew that we were working towards this end goal of opening up for members. And we had a timeline, and we nailed every single element of it. We fell behind early on when it rained, and then we just ground it out and got it done with the end goal of opening the golf course on the weekend of the 29th of March. Now, we officially opened the golf course on the weekend of the 29th of March. However, we postponed golf due to weather. So we hit our target.
Absolutely.
The first round of golf was the week
right.
after, but forever that golf course was opened.
It was officially
on the 29th
opened on that
of March.
date.
So
I noticed there's a unique little plateau built into the fairway there.
That's the landing zone,
That
right?
is such a cool little touch, and most people wouldn't even notice that.
That's right. And you did. So that mark there, so the turning points, so the guys set their turning points 277 metres from the back tee, right? Which is 300 yards. So that's
okay.
That's the turning point. I had a cup in there and a flag, so I could shoot distances to set the team up.
Okay.
But isn't that, it's
That
perfect.
is just
And you
a
see,
funky little
because what it actually does
bonus.
is this fairway naturally tilts and shoots you off to there.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful little plateau here, like you said, but if you land on the edge of it, it kicks
It's
you
going
even
to kick,
harder.
So you can kind of feed it in.
right.
There's some really cool ways to set up this hole, and I love the blowout up the fairway, up the hill, right up towards the boundary there as you get closer, which could leave you with there's another little landing area, sort of resting area.
Yeah,
That's
and there's
good in
all
there.
those little subtleties that they work so hard on. This is interesting, this fairway. So we're on the fourth fairway now. Same corridor as the old fourth fairway.
Yep.
Where I'm parked right here, this was the line of trees.
So it's
So
gained all of that.
is new space.
Wow.
So there were a handful of pine trees here, an angophora and a paperbark and a banksia. So in this
Wowee.
thing. And that was all just dead zone. There was a bit of grass up there. And
Yep.
you actually got, if you sprayed your ball on this hole, you actually got a shot into the green from over there, which wasn't really fair either. But now this fairway has absolutely doubled in size, but still kicks you off to the right.
It still moves the ball around a lot, right?
And this is not in this. This is essentially not in play off the tee unless you're
super long.
Rory, maybe.
Yeah. That's what 300
or
more.
That's 277 from back.
Yeah,
there,
right. So it's 320
it's
metres
yeah.
ish
So
to get in the front edge of it.
from the back, but it visually is beautiful.
And it works into the bank and the hillside up the high side and all those. Oh, mate, you must be pinching yourself. I gotta be honest, this is so much better than I expected in real life, and I was blown away by the photos. You must be absolutely pinching yourself at what everyone has come together for in this whole time. And I've got no doubts that, like you explained just earlier, how challenging some times were, and you'd have been shaking your head going, really? This has happened now, or this has happened now along the way. What's it feel like to have woken up, and like you said, you had the first play the other day, you had the official opening. I mean, that's got to be one of your greatest career moments. Has it? No, I mean, that's a big call maybe from me, but is that what it feels like?
Hands down, and I don't think anything will ever compare. I said, there's a couple of things. We had a meeting last night, committee meeting last night, and I said to some of the committee members, can you believe what's unfolded over the last 3 weeks? And what I mean by that is, so 3 weeks ago we had Gil here on site. So Gil came back, and Gil and I, we speak a lot. His last time on site was the 2nd of October. Right, so think about what's happened.
Wow.
He built the last green and then he left. So
Wow.
he hasn't seen a lot of this fully grassed. He didn't see how 15th fairway shaped up. You know, Josh and his guys did that. But so essentially 3 weeks ago we had Gil on site. I spent a full day walking the golf course. We walked it twice. So I guess what happened then was we got, you know, recognition from Gil that he was really, really impressed with the final parts of the grow-in and how the course looked and how it was going to present. He putted on every green. He made some really great comments about how good the greens were. Again, and we knew this, but it's nice to have him back. And he sees the golf courses he builds at that state every time he goes back for that opening time. So that was nice. He presented to members. He did a great hole-by-hole overview of every hole and the strategy that we recorded. He did a fantastic presentation to 250 members on the Monday night where he spoke about the construction process. We went from that week, the following weekend we had our official opening, so we had a reopening cocktail party on the Friday night where we had some really important people that were part of the project, and we cut the ribbon and officially opened the golf course. Saturday night we had the reopening party, 700 members at the clubhouse, fireworks. That was meant to be the opening round, but
because of the rain.
But we still had that, and then as it turned out with the postponement of golf, we've just had the Festival of Golf weekend where we had double shotgun Saturday, double shotgun Sunday, first rounds of golf. We had a festival theme out on the concourse. There were bars, cafes, food stalls, and members encouraged to come down. So there was just a fantastic vibe all weekend.
Wow.
Feedback on the golf course was fantastic. Members really enjoyed their golf. So I guess the only thing we hadn't received was validation from members that this was, and we got that.
Yep.
So if you think about the last 3 weeks and what's unfolded, and you talk about pinching myself, I mean, I am absolutely right there.
Wow.
The thing that I said to a couple of my senior guys on Saturday and Sunday, after seeing golf out there for the first time, we literally said, you know, can you believe what the club has achieved over the last 14 months and that we've been such a big part of? So yeah, it's incredible.
An astonishing achievement, mate, in every possible way. Thinking about logistics and what's involved in building, let alone growing in, and you know what the expectation is of everyone on. So someone like Gil, and you talked about Gil's comments at the end. I'm thinking of having someone like Gil, who's the designer and the architect of the golf course, and what his vision is. It's kind of a bit of an abstract of, you got someone who's designing it, but then you're in charge of finishing off that detail of a design, right? So he's got to hand it over to you. And, and you've got to be unbelievable at what you do for then him to come back after that long, was it 5 months or so, from when he left in October, to come back and fingers crossed in his mind going, well, I know what I'm thinking. Now you've managed to hit those heights. That's a pretty amazing thing as well.
And that was pretty nerve-wracking. You know, like I said, I was pretty confident that it was good, but he's seen a lot. So I was obviously hopeful. We attempted to leave nothing to chance, right? And that's, I think, you know, that's hats off again to the club and the committee because, you know, we resourced heavily. We spent the money needed to do what we needed to do. And we tried to protect this timeline, right? We knew the timeline was aggressive.
Yep.
We worked a lot. I'd worked a lot in the lead up with Jim Norfolk and the team from Atlas Golf to ensure that this program made sense and that what we were saying to members was exactly what we could deliver.
Yep.
I mean, I physically had to stand up and tell members that I was comfortable with the program and that if we closed on the 1st of January 2024, that we will absolutely open in March 2025. Now, that's a big expectation to carry because there's 6,000 members and every single one of them knew those dates. a lot of people were confident.
Yep.
Obviously, some people were sceptical, and a lot of projects blow out timeline-wise. So
Yeah, for sure.
I guess that was my main focus all year, was to ensure that everything we were doing was working towards this timeline, because I knew we couldn't miss opening, because that was going to be detrimental. I mean, if you miss March because you're not ready, when are you ready? Because you're going into the cooler
It blows
months.
you right through with all of this Santa Ana
So-
cooch down, and you're wanting to get the quality that you want.
And that's why we resourced the turf farm. We staffed the turf farm out at Dad and Dave's turf farm.
Yep.
We'd send 2 staff out there. We sent some machines
Right,
out there,
okay.
and we got the height of cut down on the fairway grass.
So
we
you-
brought the cooch in at 12 millimetres.
You were able to control so
instead
much.
of the rough height. So day one, laying this fairway, for example, we're on 5 now, but day one of laying this, we had definition between fairway and rough, because we brought the grass in at different heights.
Oh, right. So it was all ready to go, and how you wanted it.
So we didn't have to then manage this whole scalp down and
Yeah.
get down. So that was always going to protect the timeline. I mean, solid turfing, everything initially was to ensure the timeline. It was...
That's a big undertaking in itself, solid
It
turfing
was
an
huge.
entire golf course.
And, we were lucky to work with people like Graham Collis and the team out at Dad and Dave's. We also had a turf farm at Aberdeen. Rod Hinwood had a turf farm out there that supplied us grass as well, and he was fantastic.
That's up the Hunter Valley way, isn't it, Aberdeen?
It's near Scone.
Yeah, Upper Hunter. Yep, I
So-
know where that is. Yep.
We obviously surrounded ourselves with great people. I worked really hard with Alan Tarrant on all our programming for fertility, both at the turf farm and on site here. Hank Smith's been heavily involved with our plant protection program to ensure that these greens were brought in at the right time. I mentioned John Nayland. He's been incredible, and I've worked with John for years on profiles, and he's a great guy, and I feel like he's got a lot of time for me. I think I'm wearing...
Hope he still does.
I think I'm wearing thin on him because
You've exhausted most of that time.
I questioned and queried and spoke to him 1,000 times on all sorts of things, as I did with Alan and Hank. But I think that's why it worked. I would question a lot of things, and I never underestimated the expectation of the membership here, and that we wanted to get this right, and we wanted to be forever.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of testing, did a lot of work on everything we imported to make sure that we just didn't want to leave anything to chance.
You were
right?
setting yourselves up for success as much as you could, because there's a lot of moving targets, as you've explained there, a lot of moving targets in many forms with a project of this size and scale. Mate, that's quite amazing. I want to touch on this hole, if you don't mind. This is what are we, 5?
Yeah.
That is a really cool... That bunker in the middle almost feels like Mackenzie Bunker on 10 at Augusta in a sense.
It's dead centre of fairway, and it's funny. There were a few questions asked of that bunker on the initial design, and Gil stayed strong with that. Some people wanted it pushed to the edge. But this is my favourite part of the property.
This is golf course porn right here, ladies and gentlemen. My jaw has hit the floor.
We'll go up on
that
16
is
because this is...
That is wow. And this green on 5, hitting up from where you're going to land down in the hollow, that's a really sizable climb to a blind putting surface.
Yeah, it's an interesting golf hole. So
A really cool hole.
Elevated hole. On the plan, no bunkers, but there is a bunker at the back now, just because there was a beautiful Banksia ericofolia there that we wanted to keep. So Gil decided
That looks
to put
magic.
a little bunker
Just
there.
a touch.
Shouldn't really come into play, but
it just looks cool.
The beauty
Look
here
at
is
this.
no bunkers, right? But the defence is obviously in front of you here.
And the blindness.
You've got the fairway bunker. If you're right, you're in a fair bit of trouble.
Yep.
There are some subtle little spots here. So if you miss right,
Yep.
you'll run all the way back down.
Yeah.
But if you're short left, there's a couple of little pockets that your ball will hold, and that's intentional.
And short, yep, that's it.
And a really slight tilt from back to front that feels a lot more than what it is based on the front
feeling
out here.
of that extreme hill that you're coming up. Mate, the greens just feel so beautiful. My Lord, I just want to putt on them right now.
The greens
That
are
is
really good.
just sensational. Wow. what a... and I don't know, I don't remember what this hole was like before, actually.
It was quite narrow. The trees came out a lot further from this copse. We reduced this copse back a bit. And there was a big bunker complex on that right-hand side.
Okay.
It still had a front, you know, that
The climb up.
that climbed up the hill, and the green was...
So the green was kind of up here anyway in previous iterations. But
and then the 6T sat
that is
up there, but it was all a grass connection.
that is a great touch with that Banksia and that bunker. And they're things that are highlighted that a lot of golfers won't even notice have been brought out like that in that fashion, aren't they? Really, and they're some of the detailed touches of a Gil Hanse. These are the things that these guys can see and notice, guys and girls, depending on who you got involved. But for here, around the tee, it wraps around nicely. It's yeah.
And this is where Gil's team are phenomenal as well. And I'll just highlight this little area as an example. So that bunker got put in. You know, Gil was keen to have that, so it's quite quirky and it works. But then this was all grass.
Okay.
Josh McFadden, who's Gil's offsider who ran this project, Josh has got an incredible eye, and I mean, you have a look what's out here, and he was in charge of a lot of this.
Yeah.
And he just, from day one with that grass, he's like, there's something not right about that, and we sat on it for a bit, and he queried Gil and said, I want to make that native. I just think it from back there
breaks it up.
It'll help the bunker, you know, and they sat on it for a while, and then him and Gil, you know, had a bit of back and forth, and then ended up turning it into native, and I think it looks amazing. That's where Gil's really great as well. He listens to his guys, and they have a lot of input.
Yeah, and they're the extra minds and ideas and things that spawns ideas, right?
That's it.
It's all creativity in this line of work.
This is where you go.
This is absolutely staggering. What a transformation.
And this is a short golf hole, so it's 111 off the back.
Wow.
Right? But obviously there's a fair bit going on.
A fair bit going on.
I think the beauty here, Steve, you get, it's a location here that you look down, you've got, you know, you can see 5 green, you can see 7 green, the guys down there spraying that green at the moment, so you can see 5, you can see 7. You're obviously looking down the corridor of 6. You've got the 12th green being cut over there. You've got the 15th green just behind 6 there, and in the distance there you can see 13. The beauty here is you get eyes on those greens, and then this is where the routing changes. And you used to go
straight down O'Sullivan's.
Now go that way. So you kind of see what's happening up here, and then you go
and then we take
back
off
down.
So we're going to come back. So we sort of get a glimpse, then we go, no, we're over here now.
Yeah, and it takes you back down the flatter part of the property and then brings you back up around here. So Gil always talked about the fact that the best topography on this land was behind you once you got past the 8th green.
Yep.
You know, and you never saw it again. So to introduce it on both 9s was obviously
so bringing it back into the routing, into your time out here, taking all this property in.
Essentially go around the boundary now up to 6, and then 7, 8, 9 takes you back through the middle. 10, and 11, 12 come back
through
the middle, and then you 13, 14, 15 back around the perimeter and where the good movement is. And 15, so the big routing change here, we're looking at the old 7th hole was a par 5, it's now 13 and 14, 2 short par 4s.
Ah, okay.
And 15 was old 8 and 9, which were essentially 2 short par 4s, now it's a par 5.
Correct me if I'm wrong, now this is the one that I remember, I think it was 8, which had a really big dish is that the wild, weird feature that was in front of that green? Is that right, what it used to be?
Used to be, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That's
what I remember of that
That's
hole.
now the landing area on 15. So that's one of those examples, and you can see the horizon line there. That's the landing area on 15, which was the 8th green.
Right, okay.
And that's one of the ones that Gil thought was a ground plane that should have existed, and it had this big scallop out for 8.
It was really weird.
So you can see he's reconnected that, and it almost carries through 13 green. So he's tried to reconnect that land.
It's like a ridge line that was there before of the sand dune or the sandscape area that we're in.
Correct.
Because, like I said, this is, driving around the road here and the outside, I was like, I didn't appreciate how much, because you couldn't see before from the road so much, how much it was a low bowl in the middle that the golf course site is on. And now we can see this is a high point down here. There's a ridge line that runs a little bit through there that he's reconnected.
That's right.
Which is just sensational. I look forward to seeing that, mate. This is...
and this is a part of the property, if I'm a little stressed out and I need to calm down and relax, I just come up here and I can have a little moment and I can kind of take it all in. And this is my happy place up here. There's a fair bit going on. Like I said, there was a lot of challenges with building this hole. We got a lot of washout early on.
Right.
We had to rebuild these bunkers a couple of times. We'd rebuilt them, we'd sanded them, and then this whole bank washed out into them, and we had to clean it out again with all this rain. And so, to think, and it's also these are the first 6 greens we seeded.
Oh, okay.
So this is, and it was the 22nd of April. So it's almost, it's coming up to a year ago that we seeded these greens. So this is, like I said, this is where I come if I need to just take a moment and try and relax.
And I was going to say to you, where is your most favourite part of this golf course?
This is it.
Yeah. The 6th tee. And I can see why. Just a spectacular viewpoint. That is now going to be, I think, one of the coolest par 3s we've got in Sydney.
It's short, which I love.
Well, it's just that element of like a little drop par 3 to a green that's got a couple of areas on it that you've got to target if a pin's like, hey, you can't just go and hit to the middle. There's a nice hump I can see in the middle.
There's a couple of greens there.
And there's drama. It reminds me of a drop shot 10th of Kingston Heath in a way, if that's the right way of saying it, where we've just got more elevation below us. And I never really appreciated this hole before.
We had a front right pin for opening round, so just to the right of that turning board.
Yeah, right, in that little low point.
Above that bunker.
Of course you did.
And, we had greens. They were pretty firm and fast on the weekend, which...
And there was some good temperatures leading into that.
That was intentional.
Yep.
But we did have a couple of people, and everyone was trying to understand green speed as well, brand new golf course. But we did have a couple of people that actually obviously went long and putted, and
off
actually putted off into the bunker.
I shouldn't laugh.
I know, and I was a bit the same.
It's kind of one of those things. That is just, what a golf hole. The photos don't do it justice. That's very impressive.
One thing, our members, we did a lot of member tours, kind of January, February, March, in the lead up to opening. We started to bring some members out and get them out on the golf course, which was nice. And we've done a lot of comms over the project to members to keep them informed, and a lot of drone flyovers, which has been really well received, and a nice way to keep the membership engaged. But the comments were, when they got out here, they just didn't appreciate the ground movement from the drone footage. And I guess to your point, holes like this, they look great in photos, but when you get out here, you're like...
Oh, you can see that the use of the elevation and the way that even that big front bunker with the island, the broken island through the middle, I mean, it's a really dramatic par 3 without the cliffs of New South Wales or something, you know what I mean? Like, that's a standout hole.
My guys had fun.
This golf course.
My guys had fun building, these bunkers. You look at this, and the fact that we knew we were bleeding the bunker out into native, and there's a few informal edges, and whilst we stopped the better billy at a point, and then we're splashing sand out beyond that, bunker sand out that to get a tie-in and a not a defined line, and then having Harley plant out these islands and them taking shape. It's been really cool, removing a bit of grass where we've needed to and plant veg to pop that out. Like I said, adding short grass into some of these bunker tongues and taking these 1021 mowers in there and cutting them. It's been really fun just playing around with how we best present. And
what has it felt like for the team members? They're learning a lot of new skills here. They're experiencing things that they may never experience again. I mean, there's got to be a level of excitement and pride in what they've been part of as well, I imagine.
And I mentioned that, how proud I am of that. And it will be, like I said, if I take time at some point, which I will, and reflect on what we've achieved, it will be, it's been an amazing experience, right? And I'd be pretty confident to say no one will ever experience something like this again. Now, the odd person might move on and continue to chase this sort of stuff, but what we've done has been unbelievable. And I knew we had a good team, and that's why I was confident to take these things in-house, but they've completely exceeded my expectations, and they've learnt skills that they will have forever and potentially won't get an opportunity to learn things like that ever again. And some of them probably won't even fully appreciate or understand what they've learnt until they need to, lean on that skill again the next time they do something like that, or, they essentially become way more employable now, these guys, having done that. And like I said, the buy-in from them, there seemed to be, within reason, no nonsense. There's just, everyone's gotten in and gotten it done. We've chopped and changed jobs. We've been reactive when we've needed to. We've had a great plan Thursday night that we've completely flipped Friday morning, whether it's based on a contractor or weather or, so, it's been phenomenal. I mean, logistically, it's been super challenging, but when you've got a team that buys in and aren't bothered when you pivot really quickly like that, they just embrace it. It's hard when you get resistance on those things, but everyone's like, no worries, they get it. We know what we're in for.
Let's get on with it and keep going.
Wowee.
How are you finding the Santa Ana, mate? As a young grass so far, it's gone well considering.
We're going to treat, the plan is to be hard and fast here, so we want to, drop fertility out. We've obviously had to get the fertility to a point where the grass was healthy to open and go through winter. So we're definitely a lot greener now than what we would want to be. But the plan is to be lean and mean, firm and fast. I think Santa Ana is going to be perfect for that. It's got a beautiful colour when it does hold its colour. I really like the contrast against the Pure Distinction.
Yeah.
The same with the Pure Distinction. I think its natural colour is amazing, and you can see that contrast already. So I'm excited. I'm excited to get into next summer and really dry the place out. We want to dry out the Santa Ana, and we want to be, we want to present kind of a bit patchy on fairways and be firm and fast, and that's the bit that excites me. I love that style. I love the playability aspect of that. So we're keen to see how that all unfolds. But the Santa Ana is great.
It's also a grass I find in my own personal work that itself can pivot and move as the weather changes dramatically. So if it turns really dry, really hard, it can just adapt, shuts down, and all the wonderful different spot colours will come through. Areas that hold a little bit more moisture will be a little bit greener. The higher points will just brown off, and it is what it is.
It's fantastic. And that's what we're trying to achieve. And even areas like this, so I guess what, to the guys when they build the golf holes, and this is the 13th tee, they give us the grassing line for the short grass, and then they give us the grassing line for the rough, right?
Yep.
And then the plan is to let this rough bleed out like it is here. So this is a perfect example of what we're going to embrace here. This rough will kind of do its own thing, and we'll make sure it doesn't impede on any of the native and do that. But this uneven growth here is exactly what Gil and the guys want. So
the irregular, broken style.
Yeah,
where
we've just got
to
train our team now to ensure that we embrace that, and we're not trying to create smooth lines and things like that.
And there's a level of knowledge and skills and learning in that as well, right? That's another skill set that everyone's in the team's getting involved with. I like that track even around. Is that a maintenance track, or is that part of the golf track, the path that people will walk?
They kind of they serve both purposes.
Okay.
Yeah, so
it's really well done.
We don't have a massive carts here.
Okay.
Members can use carts with a medical certificate, but you don't just use a cart. It's a walking course.
Yep.
So Gil was pretty adamant that he's not going to design it with a huge amount of cart paths, albeit he's conscious that we do need to get carts around, and then we obviously need to get our guys around as well. So a lot of them will serve both purposes, and the tracks are all, just a crushed granite. They're not a feature.
Yep.
They serve a purpose. They're not designed to be too visible. I think they've done
They're
a really
soft.
good job of hiding them, and Harley's worked with us there to ensure that the plants go
as the natives. That's right. As they grow up and mature in size, they'll hide more of it as you get out there and you're walking the fairways like we are right now. Fantastic. This green, is that part of that new?
Yeah, so that's 15. That's the short one. So it's the smallest green on the property. So that's
I was going to say, I didn't know. There might have been a nursery there for a minute.
312 square metres. And then interestingly, you play 16. So that's the new par 5, 15. And then you play 16, and 16 green's the largest on the property. It's
okay.
818 square metres. So you go from 312 That's the scale of greens. You go from 312 square metres to 818.
I really like that. I'll be curious to see what the hole looks
Yeah,
like.
we'll walk that. We'll walk that golf hole because it is, it's one of Gil's favourites as well.
I love the use of the land here around.
This is 13, so this is Gil's version of Royal Melbourne 10 West, but it goes the other way.
Okay.
So 10 West obviously kicks, dog leg left.
Yep.
And this is, short par 4, drivable, big bunker, big false front on the green, which we'll see, and that's the one we had all the trouble with seeding.
Right, okay.
But really cool golf hole. And it's just interesting to get people's feedback on how they played that on the weekend.
Yeah.
A lot of people, going low, short of the bunker and just pitching
Oh,
up.
and giving themselves a bit of an angle where they can see through that hollow that's been created.
But then there's a bit of a plateau up there you can land, and then if you take the bunker on, there's a bit of a dip that you can maybe try and sneak up onto the green as well.
Okay. I just can't get over the expanse. The golf course looks so much larger that you can see, like right across back over to there. Where was that? Was that the third? Is that where we can see?
That's 4. That's the big bunker on 4.
Oh, 4.
Up into the
Okay,
hill.
got you. It looks unreal. You can see across to the suburbs on the other side.
New irrigation dam that we built.
Yep.
So I think one of the tricky parts of the project was the amount of infrastructure we put in the ground. So we ended up, we've essentially plumbed up every green for sub-air. So
oh, really?
we've got the drainage network in the greens anyway as part of the, USGA construction methodology. We've got a gravel layer, we've got drainage pipe.
Okay, yep.
And then we've essentially put in what's called an ops package, which is all the dual check valves and the air water separators and the piping needed to hook up the sub-air. We've put all that in, it's all connected, and it all goes back to a point where we've marked where the sub-air units will go in the ground.
Okay.
And then we've got electrical conduit to all those points as well. So there's a full electrical network around the whole site.
Wow.
So every green has the capabilities to have electricity. And every green is plumbed up, ready to just attach the sub-air unit to.
That's a staggering amount of infrastructure.
We've got a whole new electrical network around the whole property. We've got a comms network around the property that's just an empty conduit. So we're not exactly sure what we might use that for, but we've got a link around the entire site for some form of communication if needed. We've got all new drainage, so that whilst the site's sand, we said we had a because we've put drainage in greens and drainage in bunkers, we needed a macro network to tap into, right? So we've essentially got a drainage network now around the whole site that all these features tap into, and that all exits the property through our water channel that goes out into the harbour.
Yep.
We put a big new wet well and 3 pumps in the 18th low-lying area that used to flood. So it's now got a big wet well that takes groundwater into it. It takes overland water, and it's got all the macro network plumbed into it as well. And that now hard pumps from there uphill up into the culvert. So that's a massive piece of infrastructure that never existed.
So that'll get water off the property from that low point, is that right?
Takes it away, yeah. Actually exits the property.
Yeah.
Which everything does now.
Okay.
We've obviously put a brand new irrigation system in. We'll have a look in the pump station, it's pretty impressive. But
yeah, cool.
We essentially went from being able to deliver 75 litres a second to 160 litres a second now. So the brief to...
More than double.
We worked with Paul Jones from Ways with Water, who's our irrigation designer. And the brief to him was that we want to run a par 5 all at once. The entire par 5 I want to be able to run.
Right, the whole thing.
The whole par 5. And that's with the view that we need to get ahead of golf. We're a busy golf course, and if we want to, example being a wetting agent application on the morning of golf, we want to be able to spray it and water it in before golf.
Yep. Oh, yeah, okay, got you.
And that's worked really well. But as a result of that, we've got big pipes and we've got a big pump station.
This is cool. Wow. That's all open sand in between the holes.
Yeah, and that's because, that will all be planted.
Yeah.
This is all the 15th fairway. So this is the first hole built.
Okay, so this 14. Is where you started.
Yep. And we worked up. And then last fairway built was 15, because that's where we had... This 15th fairway was our site compound, so site sheds and stockpiles of gravel and sand.
Okay.
Felt like it took forever to get out of that. but that was grassed the week of Christmas.
Oh, really?
20th of December was kind of final grassing there.
It's a funky hole.
Yeah, this is cool. Another short 4, and yeah, good use of bunkers to guard that green, and it's a pretty big green as well. This is so like I said, first green built, and this is where I kind of knew what I was in for with Gil and his guys, because the green was a completely different shape, and he called me, I don't know, second day that he was here, he shaped that green, and he called me and said, could I come down and meet him? And he's like, I want to put a bunker over the back here that's not on the plan.
Right, okay.
And it's the biggest bunker on the hole.
Oh.
It didn't exist. So that's where we're like, okay, this is what we're going to embrace that. You know, we're not going to resist anything like that. We want him to be creative and do what he feels within reason. And it worked out really well.
Oh, okay, here we go. Oh, got you. So that really does.
It just guards.
You can push through there pretty easily, I imagine.
Yeah, it guards that back pin. He was kind of worried that back pin was fairly safe.
Yeah, gotcha.
You know, it didn't have that protection, but quite a cool shape.
That's nice. And you can kind of feed it in a little bit too here.
Yeah, we put a front pin here for opening round, which is really hard because the greens are quick. So a lot of people running up, and then they're running all the way back, and they've got a big putt back to the front.
It slopes from front to back, which is not a common green, right?
That's right.
Adds to the defence of the hole. That's really nice. I like that touch. The greens look absolute ace for something so young, even though that's the oldest green out of all your young greens.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing when you kind of look around and think that, well, this time 12 months ago we had grass on 3 fairways and we hadn't seeded a green at all. So
it's unreal.
It kind of puts it into perspective.
I like the delineation of these offcuts from the trees you cut down.
That's right, and then
for the tracks.
These are more so for us, just to stop driving through native areas and you know, create these cut throughs. And
it's subtle, it works.
Yeah, and then we can move them around a bit based on where. We'll close them off. We literally finished this road out, so this is our road from our maintenance facility.
Yep.
That was tough to build because it was the only access to the site as well.
Oh,
so
of course, yeah.
We literally finished that 2 days before what was meant to be opening rounds, but actually looks.
So again, just an extra. You got that rush through right to the final siren. Wow! So blind uphill tee shot, essentially.
Yeah, beautiful horizon line that they've built there.
Sensational.
And, you know, I think this is a really neat golf hole, and you'll see, you know, the bunker's not too overpowering there, but it's there. And then when you get up onto this rise, you'll see that whole hole come together. It's a beautiful golf hole. Gil was excited about this golf hole the minute he worked out that he could change old 7 to 2 4s and create this. I just think there was naturally a good land movement. Like I said, he reconnected that, what he thought was that ground plane that went through there.
And done so well that you can't even tell. You just assume that that's what it was, right? And that's what they do so skillfully.
And Josh did a lot of work on this one. You know, because this was the compound. It was the site, you know, site sheds. It was stockpiles. We had a big borrow pit here. And we had a massive pile of sand. So, Josh, you know, he did an amazing job here shaping this.
So is this kind of landing area up here on top of the rise?
Yeah, so obviously depending on where you play your tee shot from. So where the green's direct, that guy's mowing the green up there, right? So that's 15 green, the little 312 square metre one.
Oh, is that where we're going?
That's the 15th green where the walk behind mower's up there, so behind the bunker.
Yeah, right.
So it's guarded by that massive bunker.
So that's the green for this hole?
Yeah.
No way! That's wild.
You can see the flag, right?
That is so groovy.
It's just cutting that now.
Yeah, okay.
But what happens here, so you've obviously got, and this bunker looks like it's connected to that green, but there's essentially 40 metres between the edge of that bunker and the green. It's obviously a very small green. So your land, this is the location of the old 8th green.
Okay.
That big cutout.
Yeah. Got you.
So,
got you.
You know, you're here from the back tee. This is 270 metres right here from the back tee.
Okay. Okay.
So you can see what your options are here. You take that bunker on, and you know there's a bit of distance between the bunker and the
and a little bit of a southerly breeze as you face and you play this hole.
Or you're playing to the right and you're pitching up.
That's a
Gil's thought process here is that the majority of people will play to the right.
Yeah.
And it becomes a pitch in to
Yep.
a really small green.
to a tiny green.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Either way, it's held well to defend itself. Either you're hitting something long to try and go for it, and you're not. And then you're below the green by a lot on the right hand side to chip up for 3 if you're a big hitter. But if you're down to where the tractor and the fairway mower is,
And that bunker will give you plenty of head noise, you know,
Very
in your
much
backswing. So
that's unreal. What a great use of the movement of the land by bringing this in.
yeah, and it's a beautiful golf hole, quite natural.
Wow.
Let's have a quick look in the pump station
Yeah.
while we're here.
That's cool. That's a really, and then you get blocked out if you stuff up your second.
Yeah, so down here you lose sight of the green.
You've
You
lost
won't
everything
see
there.
the
That's a disaster. If you hit it to there, wow. Look at the size of the pipe work. Bloody hell.
pin. Yeah, there's a bit going on there.
So this is this all new?
It's all brand new, yeah. So
Okay.
it's actually not finished yet, but
Was it here before?
no.
Okay, so the whole thing.
Old pump shed and old dam were down next to the old 11th.
Right,
So we
okay.
moved we wanted the infrastructure all up near us, so
Yep,
we've got
yeah,
now
yeah. So
our
it's-
maintenance
you're not
facility,
far off the-
pump station, dam.
And access for machinery and equipment up the road and
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff.
So we've got a wet well configuration, so all the water's there. So literally,
oh, okay, got you.
that's our suction
Yep.
suction line. Our
From
foot valves
here.
are all here.
And it's straight
So
out
the
to
level
there.
of the dam is the level of the
Is here.
wet well.
Got you. Wow, that's impressive.
And this is the engine room, right? So
Oh my lord.
there's still a little bit of work happening in here, but essentially there's 6 pumps and then a jockey pump as well.
Okay. Geez, so
So
that's the pipes going out.
Yeah, so we go out in 355 poly. There's a fair bit of 355 that goes out, then it drops down to 315. But the majority of the main lines out there are 250 mil. Like I said, with the view that we've got, we can run a complete par 5 at once, tee, fairway and green
of a par
on
5.
a par 5. So that was the brief, and it's worked out really well. And it's pretty impressive when you
I
fire
bet it
up
is.
and you see that whole hole.
The whole
on,
thing,
you're like,
just in full pressure
lights up.
from tee to green.
So
Wow.
what that will allow us to do then is, just the watering window. Obviously, we can really reduce that watering window, and where I think we'll benefit from that is, whilst you don't need that necessarily need that watering window at night, in relation to wind, we can probably try and just pick areas of less wind and just go bang and
Yep.
knock out
Just
the
do that
fairway
whole
program
section.
in a couple of hours, as opposed to 6 or 7 hour period. So
Yeah.
we'll benefit from that. Obviously, the reason for it was to stay ahead of golf
Yep.
and wash stuff in ahead of golf. But again, this pipe work hydraulically, it's got capacity.
Is
to be
there
in the ground
anything
forever.
like this that you've seen?
I don't think so.
Before? I've never heard of anything like that.
And what we did here, so some things that we'd not necessarily struggled with, but our limitations in the past as well were that our centenary course and our northern areas, which is tennis bowls, croquet, were all fed off the same ring main around the property. So what
okay.
I've done here is take individual lines out now from here.
Right.
So this is obviously championship golf course.
Okay.
Then we've got a line here that goes out and feeds just the centenary course now.
Yep.
And then this line here goes all the way down to the tennis courts.
Past the clubhouse
So it's
to the
got
tennis
nothing else connected to it. Connects into the back of the tennis courts and feeds that whole northern area. So if I want to isolate the golf course, I can isolate the championship golf course here,
Yep.
and then still got centenary and northern areas live there, or I can isolate them and leave everything else.
That's what I was going to say. So
and
you
not-
can independently work
That's right.
on areas without upsetting anything
All
else.
from here.
And
So-
the greater level of control that this arrangement has given you, not only with timing, like you said, with your gaps, but also in sections of the golf course,
That's it.
This is exactly what you need, really, to be able to do it flawlessly.
Yeah, and it's just nice to know that you've got individual control back at this location here.
And that's a long way. We're a long way from those tennis courts as well. It's not.
Yeah, it's
sometimes it's sort of obviously not something that you could do here, but where it's set up where some of this infrastructure or the water supply is in the middle of a site to allow for not worrying about friction loss over such a long distance.
Yeah, we're essentially at one end of the property.
Yeah, we're a long way from home.
Yeah.
Wow, that's unreal. That's some big pipes. Very well set up. Very well set up. So is there a lot of fines in the native sand? Is that part of why it's...
Yeah, there is.
It doesn't work so well for bunkers and for just normal drainage, it's a bit heavier?
Well, it's soft, right? This is all essentially dunal sand.
Yep.
But it is amazing when you get water and you see water run and then water settle and those fines.
Yeah, come to the surface and sit on top. I assume to have a dam there, it's lined. Is that how you do something like that on a site like this?
Yeah, that's right. So it's got 3 liners. So it's a really neat concept actually. So the first liner is like a drainage liner. This SDV drainage line that goes in, that essentially has a geofabric membrane on it and then a drainage cell, and that assists with the way that groundwater hits it and disperses around it and not penetrate too much pressure through it. So that's what that first liner is. The second liner is the HDPE 2mm black HDPE liner that gets you your
it sort of seals
seal.
it proper. Yep.
And then there's a product called Tiltex, which we have over the top, and it's almost like a compressed concrete in a liner that is malleable, that you put on top of the HDPE liner. It follows the shape of the HDPE liner, and then when water hits it, it sets.
Okay.
So what that does is it protects the liner. It visually means when you draw water down, you're not looking at a black liner. It's going to look pretty ordinary, and this is obviously heavily in play.
Yep.
And it also assists in weight in keeping that liner compressed against groundwater pressure.
Oh, okay, sure.
So there's a lot of groundwater working against that. So there's hydrostatic valves in the bottom as well. So if groundwater pressure if that dam drops its level too much and the groundwater pressure is too high, the hydrostatic valves open up and the groundwater will release into the dam.
Yeah. That is such a cool green site. So well worked.
It fits in well, doesn't it?
It's really unique. Not something I'm going to expect as I come around here. So I kind of in my head, you're going around and you're seeing some reasonably generous greens. You get to a hole like this and you go, okay, I'm here, but then you've got a handkerchief to try and effectively finish out the hole, which makes it even harder again.
This one was pretty funny. Gil started shaping this. He was building that one and Josh was building 12, and they were just working together here. And there was a bit of back and forth and working out how where exactly they were going to locate them. And then Gil he called me, he goes, what do you reckon is the smallest I can make a green? And I was like, well, what have you built? And I had a look at it and I said, it can't be under 300 square metres. I'm like, I feel like if it's under 300 square metres, it's just, there's a bit of management in that, ball marks and...
Sure, and hole locations and wearing
and it's obviously, around. It's pretty subtle and it needs to be given it's small.
Yeah.
But, I just said, let's make sure it's over 300. So he goes, I'll give you 312. It was just pretty funny.
That's gold.
But he was, from the minute he started shaping this, he wanted that green to be small.
Wow.
And again, that's the difference when you've got the guy on the machine who's, he's scripted one thing on the plan, but when he's here and he's feeling it and he's working the ground and he's, I guess that's, we wanted to embrace his creativity and we wanted him to do that because that's a better result for the club.
Well, and that's what makes it, again, it's the spawn of ideas while you're out there thinking and other things, visual cues or whatever. I imagine that's being an artist in a sense, right? That's creativity at its finest.
That's it. That green had, as an example, it was further to the right on the plan and it had bunkers on this side of it. But he's like, I want to push it further this way. Yep. I'll remove the bunkers, I'll put a bunker at the back and we'll make it small.
Yep.
That's essentially how that
conversation it's a concept design, right? It's not a hard and fast design that the club embraced. Look at this expanse. Wow. I can't get over the feeling of how much bigger it just feels from
it's
those
very
trees being taken away, and then the grasses being the native vegetation, what will be low shrubbery style eastern suburbs Banksia scrub, and the grasses that go with it. This is really cool. What you'll come back to.
Yeah, so that's 12. We've come funny. So this is 6 we looked at before.
Yep.
Then we went down 13, 14.
That's right.
So this is 7. This is that.
Okay, so you go from there to here.
Yeah. This is
straight
this is the corridor of old 14, which was a par 3. So essentially, old 14, 15, 16 is now 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
And this, I think 7. You know, this is a great golf hole for what was a straight corridor.
Oh, is that what it was?
We took some trees out to the right of those trees to create length here because this was a par 3.
Okay.
14.
Yep.
But now, purely through grass lines and tee orientation, you create this complete angle in here.
A dog leg that never really needed. It's not that it just wasn't there. You've now created something out of nothing, which is really cool. What a great hole to have to try and work with. Ball shape, flight depending on the wind.
And it was fun listening to how people played this on the weekend. And again, it's another one of those ones that there's a range of options as how you play this, because you can, depending on what tees you're hitting off, you can have a crack at this.
Okay.
Right. It's not long. I think it's 293.
Okay. Look, see, that's the other thing. That depth of field gets lost with.
So 293 from down there. That's playing 319 from the very tip. So you can see how.
That is such a nice hole. Especially, that suits my ball shape, so I'm okay with a right to left shot. And if you've got a southerly blowing a little bit more and you bend it like I do right to left, I sit here and I go, okay, well, this sets up nicely for me. But if I'm playing into a northerly or a nor'easter, does it swing nor'east in the afternoons usually around here? Is that kind of it? So all of a sudden, this hole becomes a bit of a brute where I'm looking at that fairway bunker on the right going, now I've got a problem.
Yeah.
And then my second shot's going to be what?
You see, when you get down there, you want to use, the green is a really long green, so you want to come in at the right angle and you've got the full use of the green then.
Yeah, okay. No, just sensational. I love all this that you got to hit across. And you don't even need to hit across that. Like you say, you've got plenty of fairway there that's not a big carry from the forward tee.
That's right.
It's all going to tie in and grow in and mature so magically.
Yeah, I think it's really cool to see how much this landscape's already grown, and you can visualise what it's going to be like.
Yeah.
Some of these areas like that beside tees will be thick and they're completely out of play, so we'll be able to really thicken them up. It'll be good colour. So it'll be nice to see. This time next year, I think some of this stuff will be.
And then you'll start to get some of the native flowers as well, won't you? As the plants themselves mature. Is that irrigation through there just to help?
Yeah, just this native area that we had.
Temporary, I say it, until it grows in and matures enough itself.
We had a lot of wind, a lot of open sand, so we tried to put some of this temporary stuff in. We've added quite a lot of irrigation in some of these native areas just to, permanent irrigation, just to assist with
when you need to. I noticed, is that like a stormwater pit or what is that?
That's an electrical box.
Oh,
so that's one of the electrical pits where conduits terminate.
The views and the
interesting thing with all that infrastructure I mentioned, we obviously had all these plans and everything was measured and done off Gil's plans, but none of these contractors could get ahead and do anything because the plan really didn't mean a whole lot.
It was a working mud map, essentially.
We couldn't get out and put mainline in ahead of anything, or we couldn't get the electrical conduit in because they needed to have Gil and Josh and the guys shape the golf hole, shape the golf hole, allow us, to understand where the perimeters were, and then start to feed all that infrastructure through.
So some of that was a working time frame, I suppose, like you said, waiting for that design to be finalised from their creativity point of view, and then you guys would have to then go, okay, well now we've got that, now we can finalise where we need to put our services and things, the infrastructure that helps you look after the course.
And the contractors knew that. We explained all that when they were coming on board, and part of it was selecting, the right contractor based on knowing that they'd be okay to work like that.
Yeah, okay.
And the irrigation was the most difficult because the plan, like I said, they're the ones that everything's hard edge, so there's nothing they could do until we'd had a grass line.
Wow. Is that what I called the fairway bunker from the tee?
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
Are you serious? That looked like it was back there.
Yeah, so you were aiming at that,
Wow.
that left edge of
The
that
way
right
that
bunker.
has moved with the depth of field as you draw closer.
This is what I was saying.
It's
You need
so
to be down here and then use that green. So you see this green.
Yeah, got you. It runs almost across the line of play, east-west, really. And then it's got a rise straight across, perpendicular to the green shape, giving you two distinct
This is a really
surfaces.
cool golf hole.
That
you
is
can see how
funky.
And it interconnects. You don't realise up there. You realise more so on 5, but this shares that fairway with 5, and that's the fairway bunker on 5 that's in the middle. So
Yeah.
that interconnection is where we've gained a bit of space. You know, what used to be separated by trees.
Yeah, so was there a
Yeah,
line
yeah.
of trees through here
There was
almost connecting from
There
them?
were trees through there, and then 14 green used to be back where that temporary irrigation
Oh,
is.
okay,
So
yep.
those trees came behind 14 green and were completely behind it there.
Right. Wow. This is awesome. To play this angle to this green, I love that. It's just unbelievable. What a transformation. What an incredible lot of ideas and creativity to bring out this golf course.
So we hadn't actually, I said we'd speak about the bunker sand. So
Yeah.
bunker sand we tested, like I said, I trialled probably over the course of 5 or 6 years, I reckon close to 15 different bunker sands, and John Nayland and I played around with blends and mixes and all sorts of different stuff. We obviously knew we wanted to use a liner,
Yep.
and we tried a few different liners as well, but I was keen on a liner for the reasons I've already said about
Yep.
protecting the integrity of the design, separating the site sand, knowing that we wanted to import. Fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to, I guess, put it, the best sand that we found that works here, and I'm not saying it's the best sand,
Full stop.
period, I'm just
it's
saying
for you.
for this site, we trialled it, and this is the sand that worked best, and it was one that we sourced from a quarry in Victoria.
Yeah,
So,
right.
Sort of work out logistically how we were going to manage that. I needed about 5,000 tonnes. So we, throughout the course of the year, just trucked up in 42-tonne loads.
Truck and dogs.
Truck and dogs, and
Yep.
we brought it in, and we had a certain amount we could stockpile, and then we'd need to get it out and then restockpile. And you know, we did testing I did QA testing in in stockpiles of 750 tonnes. So that process there would be, Corey would make the sand. John Nayland and I had worked on a quality control document that each quarry
Yep.
got, and they knew the parameters they could stick within. They would blend the material, send samples to John. John would get them tested through a lab in Melbourne that we use, and then if it met the parameters, John would pass it, and
Yep.
then I would call the quarry and give them the okay to deliver that 750 tonnes. And we
Wow.
did that each stockpile. We did that for greens sand, the gravel for greens and the gravel for bunkers, and the bunker sand. And we did
Wow.
everything tested in that 750 tonne stockpile.
And you've got to have those checks and balances in place, don't you? I mean,
Oh, I
this
think
is
it's-
not a small exercise, as we keep saying.
And obviously these quarries, they do a great job, but they're dealing with a natural product, so you know,
Yep.
those seams change, and you know,
That's an interesting point. Yeah, sure.
it's important to make sure that it's consistent.
In the
So
quantity that you guys are dealing with, right? It's not, you're not building
sure.
one green.
that's right.
So that's a different kettle of fish again. So where are we here, mate? I'm trying to.
So
Make
I've
heads or tails
driven
out
you
of this.
around a little bit of a funny way.
No,
but
no,
we've
that's
just
cool.
come down. So that's 8T that we just drove beside.
Okay, so
Which
this is
suits to 8 green where
a
those
common
guys
fairway.
Are. And then it shares 8 and 12 is shared as well.
Wow,
Right, so
that's nice.
and this is the corridor of old 15. So this is that, I guess I would call it the uninteresting part of the old property.
Okay.
You know, 15 was fairly boring.
Yep.
It was flat. With, you know, no fairway bunkers. Bit of a straight corridor, heavily treed.
We've got a
this-
bit of interest now.
Yeah, so this was the bit that they probably had to work the hardest and just, you know, make it interesting. And I think they've done an amazing job. There's a bit going on here. It's still obviously fairly flat through the middle, but get a bit of interest up to the green. This connection here works well.
Yep.
Trees removed, makes a big difference. And I'll show you 11 green this is the green I mentioned earlier. One green that's been built that actually resembles the plan is 11.
Is that the lion's mouth bunker at the front?
It's a really quirky green. It's really cool.
I think it's 13, don't quote me on it, I think it's 13 at Concord that's got a lion's mouth sort of a green with a boomerang around a small bunker in the middle. And I can't remember, but that's the only other place I've seen. I've heard a lot about it overseas with these types of things, but we don't have them here.
Yeah, this is neat.
Oh, oh, wow.
And so the tees, that's the green you can see there's 17 and the tees to the right.
Just to the right of it,
yeah.
okay. So we've got that.
So this is new 11, it plays the corridor of old 12.
Oh, what are the movements in that green?
And you kind of have a look as we walk up here.
That is so groovy.
You see, we're still playing around with this shortcut, so that's that 6mm height of cut.
Oh,
there
yeah, that's the line we can see there?
But what we'll do after having Gil here a few weeks ago, and we're not going to do it now because we're obviously going into the cooler months, but October, November, we'll probably do a little renovation on some of this cooch, and we'll bring this short grass. We'll actually take it up the ridge,
a little bit higher,
the whole way. So there's actually a couple of pins here that you'll actually be able to.
You can really swing a ball.
Well, yeah, but you'll be able to use the surround to putt on.
Oh, and bring it back down instead of lagging to a hole, because
the intention here is to be able to get to either side of that green within the green.
That is so cool. You know what? And I don't think we get this often enough in modern golf. I love quirk that's built into a green, something that's funky, that's unusual, that you can do something different that we don't see, and that's exactly what this all is here.
For sure.
This is and the berm around the bank, like you say, that it kind of gives a little bit of a punch bowly feel.
Yeah,
if you bring that short fringe cut out, and you can make that work from a playability perspective, all of a sudden, Gil and his team have brought in the creativity of this green, and then that allows then the creativity of golf. Like it's a really different thing, right?
This was fun to putt on, and Gil spent a lot of time here on when we walked around the other day, just putting to all these different pin locations, and that was a really enjoyable day for me. So I got to walk all 18 holes it was just Gil and I, and we putted to every possible pin location on every green, and I got his insights into why.
Yep.
And that was amazing. That's what I spoke about earlier about the last 3 weeks in the club's history, and it started with Gil being here and seeing the golf course, and me getting to spend 4.5, 5 hours just walking, him and I.
That's an amazing insight into his mind and
what.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but that allows you to then use your knowledge in preparation and setup for the golf course, right? Sure. And that's a pretty awesome thing to be able to have.
It's unbelievable, and it just helps. Not that I need to refute, but when people do, and it's common that people, can whinge about pin locations. And that's pretty normal, right?
Yeah, 100%.
To have that validation that how we've set that up is based on a conversation I had with Gil on the green, and whether that's tee location, pin location, strategy, whatever it is. Yeah, that it's a phenomenal insight, and it was a really good use of time to walk with him and get a feel for that. But I guess the thing that I love the most was the enjoyment Gil had on putting on this green.
Yeah, for sure.
When he was last year, it was just seeded, so there was nothing
he would have
doing.
so he would have come in beaming wide-eyed.
He built 16. We'll walk over to 16. He built that and then left, right? And that was the 2nd of October. We seeded this green this is 16. We seeded on the 16th of October. This is the last green that we seeded.
Nice. And we're coming from this direction.
Yeah. So this is the new water carry. So that's up beside 12 green.
Oh, got you.
You carry the water, the irrigation down.
I like how those bunkers climb up the green. What hole was that one?
That was 12.
12.
Yeah.
That looks cool. So there's a nice little low point leading through the middle, a little valley.
Yeah, and again, this is a long hole. This will be index 1.
Okay.
It'll be hard. It's out of bounds is off the tee, hard left is out of bounds.
Oh, because that's the Centenary course. Yep.
There's a waterway that runs down the side left. You've got a water carry and you're heavily bunkered right. And this is so 15 we spoke about 312 square metres.
Yep.
And this is
And
16 at 818.
This is a big green. Now I can see why. 800 square metre green. You're going to have a lot of fun playing with the firmness on these greens, aren't you?
Yeah, a lot.
I can just
tell. You
tell.
can feel it, right?
And I'm going to jump in a little bit, mate. When I was at Blackheath, and I mentioned this on the podcast earlier that I released, about what you had to play with here with Yolonga. Blackheath had some Yolonga greens built up there, and I went to the quarry last year to go and see, because I didn't know. So I caught up with James and I didn't understand. I wanted to learn about it, and he was showing me where that they'd got your stockpile they were starting. And he was talking about the blends and how he introduces a certain amount of the finer material to give it different characteristics. And I was like, this sounds like fun, mate, for what he's doing to create something that you guys want, that the Blackheath had, that other courses use, and Royal Canberra have used it as well. But I got to play with it a little bit on the ground at Blackheath and see what it can and can't do. And I thought it was so cool and really flexible, and something that is really interesting to be able to deliver. And I'm thinking about what you've got here. I'm thinking about club play, the unique designs which I'm seeing on the ground now. Then you get to tweak it for championship events, for championships of your members, tournaments. I'm looking at you going, are you not going to have a time of your life setting this golf course up with your team?
100%.
And the club itself? That's pretty special. I go back to that turf-soil interaction that people don't really appreciate so much. I think that is a really cool thing to be able to have.
Yeah, the firmness thing is the key, right? And that's the thing that, we're super excited. The fact that these, I guess the way I look at it is they default to being hard. So,
that's the right way of saying it.
There'll be times where we'll actually have to work harder to slow them down rather than quicken them up. Whereas the old profile and our old profile was difficult to manage, especially in summer. It dried out really quick, so you could get them. That old profile was beautiful in that it firmed right up when it was dry, but the time you had when it was dry was very limited before it was too dry.
Yeah,
it was water,
just
and then so it was this tricky thing of if it was hot or
it's
if it
a
was
really
going to be
fine
32 degrees and you had them exactly where you wanted them, you didn't have much time to keep them that way before you need to add water. Whereas these, you get them firm, they get firmer as they dry out, but there's moisture below.
But it's only on the surface
that's right.
that firmness really happens. So the grass can still be existing and
drawing
living
from it.
It's like a well that's deep underground. It's
perfect.
Quite unique.
It's fantastic, and we're seeing it already. And like you said, it's fun to think about how we can present these. We've just got to do our part and manage that grass piece.
Yep.
But also think that grass, the pure distinction works well, obviously managed correctly, because it is sounds silly, and I've used this term before, but it's a grassy grass, right? So it wants to be grassy.
Yeah.
That'll assist with slowing them down a little bit because of that firmness. So I think that's the play there, and it's not about beating this membership up and having too firm, but the fact that they default to being firm and we can work with that and then control it. I feel like the key here is we will be in control of green speed. And firmness. And we can dictate it rather than it dictating to us.
I liken it, and it's kind of like a modern, I won't say battleground, but where we talk about greens being at the edge of people's thoughts and practicalities of golf. A USGA green allows you to manage water better, right? So it leans on the drier side, so you can make it wet without making it too wet. These greens with the Yolonga, I find, lean on the firmer side, so then you can manage the firmness and make them a little bit soft if you need to, because it's a little bit harder to make them firm when they're inherently soft. So you can lean to that way. It defaults to a better playability for golf, and I look forward to hearing you talk about it, what you could do.
We had that trial green, and this profile is slightly different. Like I said, we added an additional 50 millimetres of growing medium and took 50 millimetres of gravel out. So we're 100 mils of gravel and 350 mils of sand, as opposed to the other way around. But the trial green we had, and like I said, we had the ability to build that and watch it for 5 or 6 years, and you could treat it pretty ordinarily, right? You could leave it alone and turn water off it and not give it much love, and with the flick of a little bit of a syringe when it was really knocked around,
a lick of water,
it would perk back up.
Be enough.
Yeah, it was really good to have that trial green in for a period of time to play around with that.
That's so cool.
And it was a practice green, so it got pounded, got a lot of use.
As I'm sure you can then play with so much more, right? It allows you just to try. You can push it further and go, what can we get out of this if we do this?
Yeah, that's
like
right.
How far can we really go? And that's a good thing to be able to do as well, I imagine. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a fun green.
That is
really
such a cool green. I love the
And you can see, as you drive around now, I think you can get an appreciation for how our members now are going to have to really think off the tee.
Yep.
And that's probably something that didn't necessarily need to happen on the old golf course. So it's now going to be gearing up for where you want your shot into the green and how you get there.
Yes.
And it'll be really different depending on the pin location. So I think it's nice now that members will come and they won't actually know what they're doing until they see the pin location and the tee location.
There's enough variability in all of those areas combined to give a combination that's different every time, right?
That's right, yeah.
And that, again, that adds to the challenge of golf. If you can, it's not a one-way, I call it single-dimensional way of playing a golf hole. You can play it so many different ways. What are these ones here, mate? Is that?
That's the bores. So we've got four bores that feed into the the dam. So we draw from the aquifer below and pump into the dam. So we had a really tricky time managing. We have this area we're about to come to. So this is New 17T, and we've got a paperbark wetland. So there's the old irrigation dam got essentially drained. We relocated the eels and the fish that were in there, and we created this wetland. So there's 214 melaleucas in there, in water, essentially.
Oh, really?
And that's, something that we worked with council on, and that's, the terminology from the ecologist is that it's a biodiversity hotspot.
Okay.
So there's some little islands there.
So that's over here.
Yeah. So we'll have a look
Wow.
at it. But what we had, but that's in the area where the irrigation dam was, and that little building is the pump station.
Gotcha.
So we had a bridge for construction. We actually had to put a bridge over this culvert.
Oh, that's the, yep.
So we couldn't traffic over it. So we had to build a bridge, literally built a bridge over it that had to carry, upwards of 40 tonne for bulldozers.
For all your equipment and machinery and everything that was coming across. Right.
So we couldn't traverse over the culvert. So we did that, but we had to pull the bridge out towards the end of the project so that we could shape the golf holes and make sure all the equipment was over that side to do it, have it grassed. The paperbark wetland was actually ready to go, but the new irrigation dam wasn't built. So that was our water source linked to our pump station. So we were using the old dam and the old pump station, and we're feeding it into the new system because the new dam wasn't built and the new pump station wasn't built. Now, originally we wanted to build the dam and the pump station first, but we had some approval delays on the building of the dam, so we couldn't do it, right? So we managed that, and that was okay. We were limited to what we could do, but we made it work. Obviously, not having the golf course open for play meant you could water it whatever time. But there was a period of about 6, which felt like forever, it was about 6 or 8 weeks where we had to get rid of the bridge, so we had to build the wetland. So we had to decommission the irrigation dam, and the new one wasn't ready. So I bought 6 30,000 litre tanks, and they're sat beside the pump station there. And we managed the entire property from 6 30,000 litre tanks. So we connected one bore into them. Right? So we couldn't redivert the bore network either. So we diverted one bore into the tanks, and we for 8 weeks, which was over. It was October, November.
Oh yeah, great time of year to do it,
grass,
and no water storage.
It was
that would have been edge of seat stuff, right?
It was a real challenge, and the guys did a great job of managing that.
Wow.
I have the fortunate, I'm fortunate that I live on site, and the club owns a house that I get to live in. But what that meant is that I got the job of checking the tanks every couple of hours to make sure there was water in them. So there was a period, and that wasn't obviously every night, but whenever we needed to set water overnight, we just weren't comfortable that we had no mechanism to tell if the tanks were empty.
Yep.
And and there was no mechanism for the pump station to stop if the tanks ran
Yeah,
dry.
right.
And it was our only ability to water,
There's no
and
other.
the new one wasn't ready. So we
Man, I'm tired thinking about
there was a few nights where you'd sort of check it on your way home at 8 o'clock, and then just before I went to bed, I'd check it and then set an alarm for kind of midnight and check it again, and then I'd be in early and check it. So it was it was an interesting period. And then it would shut down every now and again, and you'd be like, all the tanks would overflow, or they'd be
Oh dear.
But we got through it. We got through it, and you can kind of laugh about it now.
Yeah, sure. That's unreal.
This is 17.
So this is now the penultimate hole.
Par 3, corridor of old 11.
Okay, slightly uphill par 3, bunkers to the left, bit of a slope back to front,
Yeah, quite.
and don't be short.
Yeah, that's it.
Right.
Bunkers, I love the way the bunkers sit into the side of 18T now.
Oh, so the tee's on top of that. Okay, over there. Okay.
Yeah.
I can see some of this. This is more recent drainage as you found areas that needed that extra help, is it? Or
No, so we knew we had a bit of drainage to put in.
Okay.
But we wanted to wait. We wanted to wait until the grass was down and then create that beautiful, neat slit and add the gravel and the sand.
Yeah, okay.
Obviously, that's tricky to do. Well, it's almost impossible to do in the sand before the grass is on.
Yep.
So we made that call, and that went a little later than expected. And that was one that I had the opportunity to do it now or come back in winter when the course was open, and I was like, let's just do it now. It'll, it takes the edge off opening round a little bit because there's a bit of scarring, but
Wow, this is completely different.
so this
is completely different.
and it's pretty
Wowee.
it's pretty amazing to see when you'll see as we walk down the tee here that depending on where you tee off from, the hole changes a lot, and we've got a bit of room back here, for championships and things like that. This can play long, and you'll see from back here, you don't see much bunker.
No, so you can't see. You
see
see
the
the
red.
outside of the dog leg, right?
That's right, and then as you play forward, more bunker comes in, and then as we get further forward, you'll get a bit of the right-hand side, green side bunker, and then you get the green. And you can see why it'll be a fun hole from all tee locations here.
Look at these ones on the inside start to reveal themselves.
It's an amazing bunker complex with those 3 native islands, almost a bit of Oakmont church pews about those islands there.
Saving the best bunker complex for the last hole. Oh, look at that. Oh, so we can still be teeing down to here. You can put the tees down here.
Yeah, well, there's another plate still down here.
Oh, wow. How many sets of tees did you say there were? 5?
5, yeah. With the view the back tees, the championship tees won't be used a hell of a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
But they're there.
That is just an unreal... That is totally different on how it used to be.
And just this connection into 10, this is 10 now. 10's a big green. It's a long par 3. Plays the corridor of old 17.
Okay.
Long.
Oh, yeah, because you used to come down here and then go up
long
here.
off the tee, but then safe, right? So you can see how you can use a big club here and be comfortable to have a crack at it, because it's not too penal once you get around, but it's a big green. There's enough short grass. If you miss, you can chip or putt, whatever you want to do.
And then the tower of the clubhouse with the flag. I mean, it's all there, isn't it?
This 18's
Just
it's
magical. That's unreal. Now it's really starting to show us what it's got.
You see what
That's beautiful.
we mentioned about strategy, and there's, like I said, there's so many ways you can play this hole, and there's a really safe way. This is a wide fairway. Even between the edge of the bunker and the edge of the fairway is wide. Right, so there's enough room. But
all the way out to that far edge of the fairway. That's huge.
But then, I spoke about that false front that sits to sort of the left of that edge of that green. That when your angle's out there, it comes into play.
Oh, I see the church pew feel that you're talking about with each of those islands. That looks...
It's cool.
What a magical bunker. That is absolutely astonishing. That's one of the most beautiful bunkers we have in Sydney.
Yeah, I'm a little biased.
I'm sorry, but I'm just throwing it out there. That is just the shape, the flow, what have you got? Like 3 to 5 layers of the revetted bunker edging, and how clean that makes it feel. Almost the straight vertical stuff of the sandbelty type, right? I love the view with the clubhouse as you approach it. It never had that feel before. As you get towards the club, you really had to go out wide to get the view around the trees before, and now it's
an amazing backdrop, right? It always has been. You were limited to how you viewed it on the old golf course. So
yeah,
I think they've done a really great job of this. And like I said, I think from a strategy standpoint, I think this is one of the most interesting golf holes. There's a bunch of ways you can play this.
So many different ways to attack.
There's a fair bit going on if you want to try and cut this corner. That's a fairly bold statement. This is obviously young.
Yep.
The view is that there's some big trees that are going in there to protect that short game practice area. That vegetation just this side of the new trees will be quite thick, so the plan is to really guard that and not have or really have people think about whether you're going to try and cut that corner.
Yep.
And it's long as well. You've got to be long to cut that corner.
That 2 metre marker that's there on the post.
Yeah, that's a flood marker.
Seriously?
Yeah. So we had to put them in as part of our flood management plan. There's 2 of them. So this is the infrastructure I spoke about. So this area used to flood heavily.
I was going to say, so it used to sit water.
Yeah, and the old 18th fairway used to, on a heavy downpour, those 100, 200 millimetres of rain consistently.
Yep.
You would actually get water go all the way out onto the old hole,
first
hole of Centenary, and all through here. So
wow, okay.
This fairway's actually come up about 1.5 metres.
Has it? It's gone up that far?
From the old 18th fairway. And then we've built this new wet well there that takes groundwater and has
this is where you're talking about, you can
pumps,
pump it out.
And it's hard pumped back up to the...
Okay.
So that's what that flood marker is sitting on the control panel for the pumps that sit in that wet well.
Okay, so this is another low area of the course where water really floods in.
But that's an area that had just never been addressed. Like it flooded. It flooded. There's photos of it flooding in the early 60s.
Right, okay.
Right? So, there was a little pump and stuff in there, but it just never had the capacity to deal with the water. So we've dealt with that. We essentially shouldn't ever see water in this area again.
Yeah. Mate, like you say, there is a lot of room out here, but then what it does to your next shot, it's really brings in all sorts of other things.
We put a pretty fun pin on opening day on Saturday that brings that false front into play, and that was...
It looks like you use a lot of front pins. It's funny about that, because a lot of golfers, in inverted commas, I hear them say, pin's got to be long, pin's got to be back, it makes it harder, it's further, it's longer. Pins at the front can be so much more challenging for a lot of golf holes.
We spoke about that one on 14. That one on 14 is one of the trickiest because everyone went beyond it and the greens are fast and firm. So.
Now that little Banksy erigifolia there that's on the right-hand side, was that there before?
Yeah, that
was part of the bunkers that the Ross Watson designed, I remember.
That's right.
Is that right?
That was there, and that was the edge of that bunker.
Yeah.
So, obviously no bunkers, nothing stayed, right? So every bit of grass on the old championship course was removed. All the old infrastructure came out of the ground. But it's a tight property, so there are bunkers in very similar locations, and where possible. Sure. Gil tried to keep some of the native vegetation to tie back in, and that was a level of maturity day one.
What were the old fairways? What was the old course? Did it have?
Grass-wise?
Yeah, on the fairways grass.
Everything was wintergreen, Cooch.
Okay.
So we've completely changed grass.
Yeah, right, okay. That is just an incredible... Oh, mate, I feel like I'm playing the Australian Open just driving around here now. Look at that as we come into the clubhouse view. Just a remarkable building, let alone golf course now. You've got, in every facet of what has been done by the club, by yourself, by everyone involved in this project since 2016 in selecting Gil Hanse, is incredible. The execution of it all, what's been delivered, what you've grown in and brought to the finished product in bringing out, like I said, the detail of Gil's designs and concepts and from his team, Gil's team, with Josh and co. I mean, I want an Australian Open here tomorrow. It's not even, I don't even work here.
Yeah, it's been, like I said, it's been an amazing journey. You know, for everyone that's been involved the last couple of years, it's been great. And there's a select group of people that have been involved for a long time.
Yeah.
And so it is pretty rewarding now. We spent a lot of time, felt like I spent a lot of time justifying it, you know, whether it was to members initially or to, you know, council or through the court system. So to sit here now and have it done, it is an amazing feeling, and it's, you know, we're obviously everyone who's involved is extremely proud to be a part of it and what we've achieved. But I think, you know, a massive hats off to the club and the board that stayed strong. And, they said it was bold, but we knew that it was the right thing to do.
Yes.
And, you know, to do it properly, that's the difference. And, you know, do what it takes to set it up forever, or our version of forever. I guess selecting, and it started with the selection of Gil and knowing that if we are calling him the best in the world, well, let's make sure that what we do to you know, put under the ground and in the ground and on top of the ground of what he builds is matched to the calibre that he is, and let's do it properly. And that was the vision the whole way through. And, you know, the club stayed strong with that, which I'm forever grateful for. It made my job a lot easier. But then, like I said, then we had the weight of expectation. You know, we had the membership watching. We had, you know, not just necessarily golf around Australia, but the Gil Hanse component brought to it, you know, golf around the world of watching this project. So, you know, I couldn't be happier with how it's turned out, and, you know, I'm thankful and grateful for everyone that's been a part of it, whether that's staff-related, members, consultants, contractors. You know, it was a tough project. It was an intense couple of years. The year of the build was, I don't think there'll be a level of intensity that will be matched, you know, in my time for me doing something like that. That was insane, and as I mentioned, I'm so proud of the commitment from our team to do it. And it's been a whirlwind. It's amazing to think, like I mentioned, this time 12 months ago, there's no greens had been seeded.
Hard to believe looking at it now.
It was a bomb site, and then you look at it now, and yeah, it's been amazing. Like I said, I hope to take a bit of time and try and properly reflect on it. But this is one of those locations I could sit here and sort of gaze out here and start to think about it all, and yeah, it's been phenomenal.
Yeah,
mate, I wouldn't change anything.
As we sit up behind the 18th green here, with the clubhouse behind us, looking out to what's been recreated in a sense, but created now, I think back to that time in 2016 and the club's announcement of Gil Hanse. He wasn't the Gil Hanse we know of today, which is also interesting in itself, right? Yeah. Everything that he's achieved in that time frame, and now we're adding this finally to here. It was a selection of so long ago. You guys have created something incredible. I think the Australian golf landscape can look to what has been achieved here and know that we've got something truly incredible in Australian golf in Sydney once again. We look back 100 years ago and it was incredible. There's lots of shiny new toys that overtake in time with the benefits of new ways of doing things and creativity, and now you've got an unbelievably unique site that has had modern creativity put back on it, and unique vegetation that is solely from this part of the country brought back to life here. Led by yourself on course to now bring all this to the future. And the club, like you said, everything that everyone's gone in like that, there was a lot of times, as you said before, people could have tapped out.
Absolutely.
And the courage and the fortitude of everyone to go through and see it to the end, mate, is just staggering. So congratulations to yourself and well done. And I could see the pride beaming in you, but also I could see that coming from everyone involved here. I've got no doubts in the future, and the team. I mean, incredible, mate. Thank you for showing me around and detailing to everyone at length what's gone on and the way that you've been through everything here to deliver all of this. And hopefully there'll be more images and things for people to see over time, and hopefully some television time in the coming years where people who don't get a chance to come to Sydney or don't get an opportunity to see it will be able to. Have you got any plans? Can you let us in on tournaments yet?
It's an interesting one. Yeah, look, first and foremost, this golf course was designed for member play.
Yeah, for sure.
But obviously, having someone like Gil, it's, a testament to him that he can create something that's enjoyable for members, but can properly test the pros. And absolutely, the club wants to host tournaments. I mean, that's the right thing to do. Yeah. For a club like us, right? We've got a rich history in tournaments. So, yeah, look, I mean, I think something along the lines of 2028 would make sense. If we can, look to that. And I think from a maturity of landscape point of view, I think that's the only bit that we need to be careful of and not going too early.
Give it time.
From a landscape perspective, because, that will really pop and it will showcase this golf course. But yeah, we'd be excited for that, and that's probably the next test, right?
Yeah.
And it would be, that to think about rebuilding a golf course and getting it back into play for members initially is great, and then to think that you could then get it to a tournament standard would be, that's another level again. So, yeah, I think we'd all be really excited for that. And like I said, there's a long, steep history with Royal Sydney and national championships, so we'll absolutely get back into that for sure.
The membership have certainly got something very special to have here for themselves to enjoy, and they've delivered something special to the country. So in time, like you say, but for the moment, let them enjoy the fruits of all the hard work, and they deserve to do so because it is something special. So
yeah, and they've been patient. They've been extremely patient, and I think I guess to close, it's been amazing, this project, but I think the support of the board, but members as a whole has been unbelievable. It's a long time to close their golf course, but we made it, we said that if we're going to do this properly, we need to close it all at once.
Yep.
And when they understood that, they were so supportive, and they have been extremely patient. So we are super excited to have them back out there now. We've got some restrictions in play this year, so there is still a level of patience needed from the members. But they fully understand what we've done here, the time and effort gone into it. It's important to protect this asset now and not overdo it leading into winter. So we'll start pretty softly from a golf perspective, and like I said, there's a few restrictions in place, but members have been unbelievably patient. So we are really excited to have them out there and watch them enjoy it. And we saw that on the weekend firsthand. There was a buzz. The weekend just gone, there was a massive buzz, and people, they want to get back out there and they want to work this golf course out. And Gil made a really good point when he was here, and he's like, I don't necessarily need to hear from people to say they love it or hate it. I want to hear that they want to go back out again. They enjoyed it, they want to go back out, and they want to try and figure it out. And I think that's what we saw on the weekend. People going, I played that shot wrong, and I now get an understanding that these greens are going to be a bit firmer and faster than we're used to, so we're going to have to play a different style.
What do I do differently next time I play that hole to work it out?
And we spoke
golf.
About that green on 11, and they want to. There's a couple of ways you could approach that, and to embrace that quirkiness and the enjoyment there and get amongst it. It's great.
There's so many great things built into this golf course. Members are going to have a whale of a time enjoying it.
Yeah, it's been amazing, and thank you for coming out and spending a bit of time here to see what it's all about.
No, mate, thank you so much, Adam. I really appreciate you showing me around in the detail and sharing it with people who listen to the pod. It's a great insight, so thank you very much. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. I know that was a big episode. I know there was a lot to it, but there was no way of cutting that short.
I didn't want to, for one. Those of you who have stuck with it and gone right to this part of the podcast and listened to it all the way through to the end, I thank you, because there is a great deal in that. And like I said, I just, when I was putting it all together and getting everything done so that I could put the podcast out, there was just nothing there that I thought that was worth omitting. Adam was able to give so much detail in every facet of that conversation that went for over 2.5 hours. And there is just the incredible amount of detail that I've never heard anything quite like that before. And I still really appreciate what Adam gave to, not only to me, but to the broader public that are listening to this episode, because it's really important. It's also equally impressive, and it's fantastic to be able to hear from within the club just what they're doing, how they've gone about it, and what they're delivering on and hoping to achieve for the future in that site. It's really incredible and wonderfully insightful. I am indebted to Adam Marchant for all of that information and his time and detail, again, going through that for everyone to listen to. So, ladies and gentlemen, I know you'll join with me in thanking Adam. I say thanks to Adam, and certainly thank you to the Royal Sydney Golf Club as well for that wonderful insight. Now, there's going to be some clickables, ladies and gentlemen, in the show notes, so please make sure you check it out. Now, this is a new type of walking the fairways. Like I said, I've not done one before like this with such detail, and maybe there's something here for me to do in the future. Maybe let me know. See if you'd like me to potentially do another walking the fairways like this about some other golf courses throughout the country. Maybe big or small, doesn't really matter, but it's something a bit different, and I'm not sure how it's going to fly with everyone, but I'm curious to hear a bit of feedback on this. So please let me know. Send me an email, thegolfinggreenkeeper@gmail.com. So the Golfing Greenkeeper is all one word there. Or get in touch with me on my socials at Instagram or Facebook. It's the Golfing Greenkeeper, and those clickables will be in the show notes as well, ladies and gentlemen. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Share this one around. I'm curious to see how far we can get this one to go. There's going to be lots of people that won't have heard anything quite like this before, and probably a lot of people that are wondering just what has gone on with this rebuild in detail for the Royal Sydney Golf Club, and it is a game changer for not only Sydney, not only New South Wales, but Australia, in my opinion. Really excited to see what the future and how the future unfolds for the Royal Sydney Golf Club, but certainly their membership will be enjoying this brand new golf course in the short term before, no doubt, I've said it that I think we're going to see the tournament back there, potentially the men's and or women's Australian Opens there at some point in the very near future. Congratulations to Adam Marchant, his team, to Gil Hanse, his team, to Harley Cruz and everyone else that was involved in the project, and also to, of course, the Royal Sydney Golf Club for all of their accomplishments with this incredible project. It's something very, very special and a game changer, as I put it. Now, share this around, like I said, ladies and gentlemen. Please leave me a review, write a comment, share, star ratings, all that sort of stuff. I really appreciate it. And keep an eye out, because as I've alluded to in the recent past, the Golfing Greenkeeper now has a YouTube channel. So, as part of this, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to be putting up some videos that I'll put together of some videos and still images that will be narrated a little bit by the podcast. So you'll be able to see some of the things that we're talking about in this on the YouTube channel. Now, I'm going to put clickables in the show notes. You'll be able to click through to the YouTube channel because I want to get that started. All the podcast episodes are out there. So if YouTube is a podcast platform that you listen to your pods on, you can now use that to listen to the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast because we're out there as well. And really excited about the opportunities there of what the YouTube channel can bring and what I can produce to bring to you, ladies and gentlemen, out there through a different medium. And really excited for that. And please, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you check out partners of Walking the Fairway segment, being Colin Campbell Chemicals at their website at campbellchemicals.com.au, and, of course, Dint Golf Solutions at their website, dint.com.au. Without these wonderful partnerships, this does not happen, and I am not able to bring so much of this wonderful content to you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll leave you with it one more time. You hit them clean, we'll keep them green, and I'll catch up with you very soon.